Chapter 1472. In the Jojo world, the Black Kylin also mobilized all the creatures in the name of the Jojo gods. From the commoners to the gods of Jojo, everyone was mobilized. Knowing that it was something that Suyu needed to refine, countless creatures were willing to devote themselves to it. The mighty project of the century finally started. Outside the forbidden land of 10,000 demons, the sacred sky ship, which had been waiting for 3 years, was finally reloaded with the cannon of law. It was a blow full of infinite power, waiting for Suyu to show up and give him a destructive blow. In a pool of spiritual liquid, Nitian Gyun was still recuperating his body that had not yet recovered. 3 years. Suyu, I don't believe that you will never come out, Nitian Gyun said with hatred. He left the spiritual pool and came to the core of the sacred sky ship. In a pool of blood-red liquid, there was a young man sitting cross-legged. His appearance was somewhat similar to his own. At this moment, he seemed to have entered some kind of critical juncture. The blood-red liquid around him was constantly boiling, rolling huge bubbles as if it would explode at any time. At this moment, the young man in the spiritual pool suddenly opened his eyes. 2 solid divine powers penetrated the vessel, and the boiling blood-red liquid rushed out and poured all over the place. A trace of blood finally leaked out. This red liquid turned out to be blood. Moreover, it was the blood of a level 3 deity. Looking closely, behind the vessel, 3 skeletons that had long since decayed lay there quietly. Looking at the clothes, they were the level 3 generals of the heaven-defying empire. The blood receded, revealing the true appearance of the young man. Who else could it be but the seriously injured Nitian Hanxing? When he was seriously injured by Suyu's boundless fighting will and escaped, it turned out that he really did not die, but was recuperating in the sacred sky ship. To be precise, he was recuperating and practicing. A pure divine power that made people tremble flowed between his eyebrows, giving people a sense of extreme danger. Nitian Gyun smiled. Finally, the boundless fighting will in your body has been restrained. You can begin to break through the shackles of level 3 and reach the realm of level 2 deity. Nitian Hanxing said coldly, "What is there to be happy about? If Suyu hadn't seriously injured me, and almost shattered my celestial energy sphere, why would I waste 3 years to recuperate? Why would I need to practice slowly for another 2 years? Originally, when Nitian Hanxing was in a desperate situation, he managed to survive and comprehend the opportunity to break through to the level 2 deity realm. Within half a month, he could break through to the level 2 deity realm. However, he was injured by Suyu's boundless fighting will and his celestial energy sphere, and it took him 3 years to recuperate. It would take at least 1 or 2 years to recomprehend the opportunity. Suyu, said Nitian. Nitian Gyun said, it's a blessing in disguise. If it weren't for Suyu's desperate situation, it would have taken you at least 10 years to find the opportunity to break through to level 2. Tian Hanxing you deadly you. 2 years later, when I become a level 2 deity, if Suyu hasn't come out by then, I will kill my way back to the Empire of Darkness and kill everyone related to him. Even so, Suyu did not have many acquaintances in the Empire of Darkness. Even if he did, they were not close. 2 years, that's fine. The Empire of Darkness, the Taiching Empire, and the Empire of Ice and Fire are in full swing, and there is an unfathomable mermaid emperor outside. Even I can't understand this situation, Nitian Gyun said, especially this mermaid emperor. It gives me a very bad feeling. Let's avoid it for the time being. Let them kill each other. When the dust settles, I will come forward to clean up the mess. Nitian Hanxing said, the world is no longer important. My only goal is to kill Suyu. Everything else is not important. Nitian Gyun smiled gently. In his smile, a murderous intent quietly faded. Both father and son were born to defy the will, and neither would submit to the other. If Nitian Hanxing had not reached level 2, it would not be a big deal. However, if both were level 2, there would be conflicts between them sooner or later, especially when their goals were the same. In the history of the heaven-defying empire, it was not uncommon for a father and son to both reach the second heaven realm. In fact, it happened in almost every generation. At this moment, Nitian Hanxing had no intention of ruling the world. That's good. We will wait for 2 years. If he does not come out, we will return to the God realm and kill our way into the Empire of Darkness. A whole year passed in the outside world. On the land of Jiuzhou there were no longer mountains, grass, or rivers. All that could be seen was snow-white metal, covering all the land of Jiuzhou. People's lives had moved from the ground to the snow-white metal surface. The land of the past had been reduced to the ground. The black and white elders were in front of a huge furnace. At this moment, the furnace was rumbling as if something was colliding inside. The two of them were delighted. They each took out a few space jade pendants and sent messages to the gods of Jiuzhou. The first to arrive was God Kailan. He could not help but sigh, "Damn, the last part has finally been refined." After a year, countless resources had been consumed, and the power of all living beings had been used to work day and night without any pause. All the parts of the replica of the World Annihilation Plate were finally refined through the Great Desolation Furnace. Each part was pieced together from small parts. Because of its huge size, it had unknowingly occupied the entire Jiuzhou world. As a last resort, the creatures of Jiuzhou had to leave the earth and live on the parts. The black and white elders were gratified. Yes, it will probably take a whole year to put all the parts together. Especially this last part, I'm afraid it will take even longer. Black Kailan murmured, 1 year, 1 more year, and we can start to refine the ancient weapons of civilization. He could not wait to recreate the ancient weapons of civilization. Knowing this, Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief and said in his heart, 1 year. Jingyu, wait for me for 1 more year. Time passed by quickly. The last year, with Su Yu's anticipation and anxiety, passed slowly. During this year, he was immersed in the words of the heavenly book. However, he became more and more nervous and anxious. From time to time, he would give up his training and enter Jiuzhou to check on the progress. Today, Black Kailan took the initiative to show up and announced the news of success with a smile. Su Yu immediately gave up his training and appeared in the Jiuzhou Cavern world. At a glance, the Jiuzhou Cavern world was only left with endless blue skies and a snow-white land. Looking down from the sky, the Jiuzhou Cavern world was only left with an endless blue sky and a snow-white land. It spanned billions of miles and was incomparably huge. Its entire body was snow-white, emitting a soft white light. It seemed to be formed by the condensation of snowflakes. Its body was oblate with a slight bulge in the middle. It looked like a gong. In terms of shape, it did not match the rumor of its prestige. However, its power. Su Yu stared at the center of the World Annihilation Plate. There were hundreds of huge cannons, and he was secretly awestruck. These cannons were filled with energy. Waves of destructive power reverberated in the cannons. With a single command, all enemies would be annihilated. Intuitively, the power of this cannon was no weaker than the 100 cannons on the Sacred Sky warship. He believed that each of these cannons could easily wipe out a level 3 powerful being. The most peculiar thing was that the position of the 100 cannons was very strange. They surrounded a fiery red ball, forming a formation. The ball was like a moon surrounded by stars, extremely abrupt. Looking at the fiery red ball, Su Yu's eyes were filled with excitement. According to the blueprint, this red ball could gather the energy of the 100 cannons and fire them at one point. At that time, just how astonishing would the energy released be? It was simply unimaginable. In the past, the replica of the World Annihilation Plate built by the 4 great empires had used this cannon to blast open the Endless Origin. The remaining energy had broken into the demonic dimension and pierced through the giant of the Bitter Sea. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Su Yu took a deep breath and flew to the center of the snow-white round plate. The round plate looked flat, but the space inside was extremely vast. In terms of space, it was 10 times vaster than the cavern world of Jojo. Suyu stared at the space and said, God Kylan, move the creatures of Jojo here in a month's time. This will be the new territory of Jojo. The purpose of the internal space was already indicated on the blueprint, which was to contain the creatures. It was impossible for a single person to operate such a huge weapon. Countless people were needed to manage different parts of it. Only then could such a huge object be moved. Inviting the creatures of Jojo to move inside was something that had already been decided. The Black Kylan did not hold back at all. Haha, I've been preparing for it for a long time. The relocation will be completed in half a month. The development of Jojo was almost 10 times greater than before. In terms of territory, it was indeed too small. The Black Kylan had long wanted to expand its territory, but its divine power was not enough to maintain a larger space. The World Annihilation Plate had saved it a big problem. Great. Half a month. Half a month is the day we leave. Suyu's eyes lit up as he quickly left the world of Jojo. Opening his eyes, Suyu stopped training and went to the cavern space where the epic-making dragon was. How's the cultivation of the dragon abyss treasure scroll going? The epic-making dragon asked calmly. Suyu cupped his fists and said, just a little. With a shift of his mind, the shadow of some chain of rules appeared around Suyu. How is this possible? The epic-making dragon's tone changed abruptly. The space around you flashed, and he was teleported right in front of him. The epic-making dragon's huge eyes stared at Suyu without blinking. He carefully looked at the fragments of the chain of space around him, and was amazed. This is really unexpected. In just 2 years you seem to have really learned a little bit about controlling the chain of rules. Yes, although it does not have any actual power, it is still amazing. Based on my estimation, you would need at least 10,000 years to learn a little bit. I didn't expect that. The epic-making dragon was amazed. In terms of comprehension, you are not inferior to the demonic ladies of the Divine Lady tribe. The Divine Lady tribe? The tribe that Xia Jingyu belonged to. There were 3 main reasons why Suyu could train so quickly. First, he had long understood the Heavenly Book. Coupled with the 2 years of hard work, he had become much more proficient in it. Second, he had the ability to accelerate time. It seemed like 2 years had passed, but in fact 2,000 years had passed. Third, the Book Deity. Chapter 1473. When he killed the Book Deity, he obtained all the memories of the Book Deity. Over the past 2 years, he had digested them day and night. As expected, he had gained some understanding of the Heavenly Book. Coupled with this understanding, Suyu's attainments in the Heavenly Book language had improved by leaps and bounds. At least, Suyu had no difficulty reading the first 10 pages of the Dragon Abyss Treasure Scroll. Moreover, because he had understood so many Heavenly Book words, he found that he had become more sensitive to the great path that existed in the dark. The chain of rules that had been difficult to detect in the past could now be identified with a serious sense of its existence. After studying the first 10 pages, he could easily summon the virtual shadow of the chain of rules. Although it didn't have any power, it would definitely give others a fright in their eyes. Suyu cupped his fists and bowed. Thank you for taking care of me for the past 5 years. I am ready to leave the forbidden land of 10,000 demons. The epic-making dragon's smile stopped abruptly, and a trace of disappointment flashed across his face. He sighed. You have to go. It's good for you to go out and hone yourself. You can't be a match for Yongyechoma if you work behind closed doors. Thank you for your understanding, Suyu said. After a pause, the epic-making dragon waved his claws, and the dragon realm was shattered. 3 figures fell out of it, looking embarrassed. They were Yongye Wuheng and the others who had learned the 3 magical powers of the epic-making dragon. The 3 of you have mastered my 3 magical powers. What you lack is practical training, the epic-making dragon said. You can go out with Suyu. After saying that, the epic-making dragon sent the three of them out of the void and said, "You can tell me when you want to go. I can help you stall the sacred sky warship for a while." After 2 years of training, Yongye Wuheng was full of vigor, and his vague dragon power was strangely oppressive. Su Yu said, "Congratulations, Brother Wuheng. Few level 3 deities are your match now. If you combine it with the epic-making dragon's first magical power, I'm sure you'll be able to put up a fight against a level 2 deity, right?" Yongye Wuheng's eyes were full of unprecedented confidence. He said, "Brother Su, do you remember our agreement?" "I do. I will fight with you once," Su Yu said. "Now?" Yongye Wuheng shook his head. "Not now. We need to break through the blockade of the sacred sky warship. We need to conserve our energy." Su Yu said, "Are you willing to go out with me and take the risk?" "Of course." Yongye Wuheng said affirmatively, "Before I met you, I was just a genius in the Empire of Darkness with an undeserved reputation. My cultivation was only at level 5 of the Eternal Darkness dynasty. But after I ventured into the Lost Nation with you, I have today's good fortune." Yongye Chushua also said calmly, "I have the same idea. The world is so big, but my brother and I don't know much about it. It's better for us to follow Brother Su and explore the world." Bai Wanqing smiled gently. "I don't have to say it. Other than following Su Yu, she had nowhere else to go." "Thank you for your trust." Su Yu said, "However, we also need to be prepared. Nitian Gyun has been lying in ambush outside for 5 years. It is impossible that he did not make any arrangement." The three of them were deeply convinced. They had long heard that Nitian Gyun was good at using troop. His son, Nitian Hanxing, was trained by him. The other party had 5 years, so it was impossible for them to be completely unprepared. The group immediately discussed countermeasures and deduced possible scenarios. "What's wrong? Why didn't you call me when you were leaving?" A voice filled with hidden bitterness floated over. It was the Saint Luo Xue. Her snow-white robe fluttered gently in the wind, like a holy white lotus, incomparably pure and holy. After not seeing her for 2 years, the power of Azura in her body had become stronger and had reached a certain critical point. Looking at her, everyone could sense a hint of danger. Presumably, in the past 2 years, her cultivation of the Supreme Wizard's secret techniques had improved. "What are you doing here?" Yongye Chushua frowned. "We are going to the God Realm. I'm afraid it is not convenient to bring you, a wizard." Luo Xue snorted. "When was it convenient for you to come to the wizard tribe's territory? In the end, didn't you come as you please?" The two women were at loggerheads as soon as they met. Su Yu quickly put out the fire. "Please don't argue. Xue, does the Moonwatch sect leader allow you to go out?" "Of course." The Moonwatch sect leader walked out of the darkness with a calm smile on his face. "Xue has inherited all the teachings of the sect leader, and I believe she will be of great help to you. She can also experience a certain degree of training by following you, which will be of great benefit to her when she takes over the position of sect leader." Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "Well, since the sect leader believes in me, I will try my best to protect her." Hearing this, Luo Xue cast a provocative look at Yongye Chushua. Yongye Chushua's good mood was instantly ruined. She had finally been able to continue traveling with Su Yu, but Luo Xue suddenly appeared out of nowhere. "Humph! What saint lady? She is obviously a vixen," Yongye Chushua whispered angrily. Su Yu smiled bitterly and changed the subject. "Let's discuss this. We will break out of the forbidden land of 10,000 demons in half a month." While they were discussing, the Jojo world also launched a second relocation in full swing. The first relocation was from the Jojo continent to the world of the Martial Tower. This time, it was from the world of the Martial Tower to the world of the wider world Annihilation Plate. The world of the Martial Tower was reduced to a wasteland. The mountains and rivers filled with spiritual veins were all moved to the replica world Annihilation Plate, which was 10 times larger. All of the living beings remained where they were and were moved inside to begin their lives in the new world. When everything was ready, Su Yu and Yongye Wuheng came to the front of the hole and bowed with cupped fists. "Elder, we will take our leave." Inside the hole, the voice of the epoch-making dragon could be heard. "Take care." When he finished speaking, the forbidden land of 10,000 demons began to rumble. After 5 years of silence, the forbidden land of 10,000 demons, which was densely covered with countless holes, finally showed signs of movement. Layers of thick dust were shaken off the ground, and a passage appeared in the hole at the bottom. Su Yu and the others walked out one after another. The long-lost scenery of the outside world seemed to have made them a little complacent, and they actually ignored the sacred sky warship lurking outside. "Let's go," Su Yu, who was in the lead, said expressionlessly. The people behind him did not say a word. They followed Su Yu straight up to the sky, and were about to take a step forward and leave this place. However, at that instant, a destructive annihilation cannon was fired at them without any warning. Su Yu and the others' faces changed slightly, and they immediately dodged. Rumble! The earth cracked open, and a sacred sky warship, which had been hidden deep underground, slowly rose from the ground. Hundreds of destructive cannons, full of energy, were aimed directly at Su Yu and the others. Su Yu said, "Let's split up and meet at the appointed place." The group of people had long been prepared, and they fled in 5 different directions. The sacred sky warship turned around and only targeted Su Yu. It turned into a blood-red light and disappeared into the sky, chasing after them. Shortly after they left, a gap was silently opened at the other end of the forbidden land of 10,000 demons. Su Yu, Yongye Wuheng, and the others walked out quietly. There was no doubt that it was just a phantom created by Su Yu to lure the sacred sky warship away. Standing in front of the forbidden land of 10,000 demons, Su Yu and the others cupped their fists and bowed to the forbidden land of 10,000 demons, then flew into the sky. Unexpectedly, before they left, 100 beams of light from the destructive cannons pierced through the sky. They had been prepared to ambush and kill them. In the sky, the sacred sky warship, which was supposed to be lured away, turned from a transparent state to a real body. This ship actually had the ability to hide itself. Inside the sacred sky warship, Nitian Gyun sneered, "I have used the trick of luring the tiger away from the mountain more than 10,000 times. Do you think you can fool me?" Bang! 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 Hundreds of beams of light came at the same time. The void space of the forbidden land of 10,000 demons seemed to have been prepared. It suddenly dispersed and gathered around Su Yu and the others to form an arc-shaped wall. The 100 beams of light were all withstood, and Su Yu and the others were not hurt at all. In the forbidden land of 10,000 demons, the voice of the epoch-making dragon sounded, "Let's go, I will hold them back." As soon as his voice fell, countless void spaces flew into the sky, surrounding the sacred sky warship. These void spaces contained the power of space, forcibly blocking the space in one direction, hindering the speed of the sacred sky warship. Nitian Gyun stared at Su Yu and the others who were fleeing in all directions and sneered, "No one in the world can save you. Prepare the law cannon." At the bottom of the sacred sky warship, a crack opened, and a huge cannon descended from it. Inside the barrel of the cannon, there was a terrible power of law. The phantom of the chain of law was looming, giving people an unusually strong spiritual impact. Fire! The giant law cannon firmly locked on Su Yu, and a majestic power of law that could destroy everything suddenly spewed out. The 3 void spaces in front of the giant cannon were directly hit by the scales, and they were forcibly blown away. The powerful beam of light penetrated the void, and with an unstoppable momentum, it directly smashed the position where Su Yu was. In that area, even the space was shattered and even time ceased to exist. All the existences of the laws of heaven and earth were annihilated by the cannon. In that case, Su Yu could not have had any chance of survival. When the fluctuations subsided, Su Yu's existence was completely erased. In the forbidden land of 10,000 demons, many wizards were stunned. Suyu died just like that? Suyu, the god of war who had survived so many dangers, was killed just like that? In the sacred sky warship, Nitian Gyun shook his head lightly. No matter how strong he is still a creature, and one shot is enough to destroy him. However, behind him, the indifferent voice of Nitian Hanxing sounded. Father, you are careless, he can't die so easily. Touching his chest, Nitian Hanxing said, My defying intention is still suppressed, which is enough to show that he has not disappeared from the world. Nitian Gyun's eyes narrowed slightly, and he reinfused the annihilation cannon, blasting it at Yongye Wuheng, Yongye Chushue, and the others. The result surprised Nitian Gyun. This time, the epoch-making dragon did not stop the annihilation cannon. 100 beams of light directly buried them. Unlike the cannon of law, under the annihilation cannon, their deaths were very clear. After they died, not a single piece of flesh and blood splashed out from their bodies, all turned into pieces. Nitian Gyun cried out, Shadows? How is that possible? Have they not come out yet? Nitian Hanxing's face was gloomy. No. I think they've probably escaped long ago. The first batch that came out was not a shadow at all, but their real bodies? Nitian Gyun was a master of war, after all, and he quickly came to a realization. For a warrior, attacking the heart is the best. Nitian Hanxing said. They knew that father was suspicious, so they beat him at his own game, making him mistakenly think that the first batch that escaped was a fake shadow, which was actually their real bodies. The second batch attracted father's attention, and with the protection of the epoch-making dragon, father believed in his own judgment. By the time father realized the truth, the real ones had already escaped. Hearing the analysis, Nitian Gyun's face was also ugly. He had been fooled. The other party had completely seen through his thoughts and slipped away from under his nose. Outrageous! Nitian Gyun was furious and looked coldly in the direction of Suyu. Chase! The sacred sky warship turned around and chased in the direction of Suyu's escape. With the speed of the sacred sky warship, if Suyu did not hide, he should be able to catch up. But with Suyu's wit, would he stand still and wait to be caught? The result shocked the father and son again. Chapter 1474. After chasing for an hour, Suyu stood with his hands clasped behind his back at the peak of a mountain in front of him. He looked as if he had been waiting for a long time. Beside him were Yongye Wuheng, Yongye Chushue, Luo Shui, and Bai Wanqing, who had fled in all directions. Bai Wanqing's eyes shot out purple light and she smiled sweetly. Everything is as you expected, sir. Everything is under control. Yongye Wuheng licked his lips excitedly, and his fighting spirit was overflowing. This is really exciting. Now that I have come back with great achievements, the first person I have to deal with is at the level of the Emperor of the Empire. In the past, I would never have dared to think about this. Yongye Chushue and Luo Shui looked at the side of Suyu's face at the same time, their eyes sparkling. That's right, when they were discussing how to avoid the Sacred Sky warship's pursuit. The plan that Suyu proposed to discuss was how to kill Nitian Hanxing and his son and seize the Sacred Sky warship. It took them half a month to convince themselves to accept the unexpected and crazy plan. In the end, although the plan was crazy, the direction of the plan was exactly the same as what Suyu had predicted. Nitian Gyun was very suspicious. He must have mistakenly thought that they were bait and would not pursue them. The real bait could induce Nitian Gyun to launch the most threatening law cannon. If it was destroyed, the greatest threat to the sky sacred warship would be the 100 annihilation cannons. However, Suyu was prepared to deal with the annihilation cannon. Nitian Gyun and his son had been at war for a long time. When they saw Suyu's posture of waiting for a long time, they knew that there was a trap. They immediately stopped moving forward and confronted each other from thousands of miles away. Nitian Gyun's eyes flashed, and he shouted, "Annihilation cannon, launch a blanket attack." Boom, boom, boom. With a command, the annihilation cannons filled the sky and blanketed the area. Every one of them could destroy a level 3 deity. The 5 of them definitely had no chance of resisting. However, almost at this moment, the atmosphere above the sacred sky warship suddenly contracted violently, as if it was under some kind of intense pressure. Following that, the sky above them darkened. It was a snow-white object that covered an area of 1,000,000,000,000 square kilometers, enveloping the entire sky. It was 10 times larger than the Holy Sky battleship. At the bottom of the circular object, there were hundreds of pitch-black cannons that were aimed coldly at the most important central control area of the Sacred Sky warship. Not good. There really is an ambush. Nitian didn't even have time to look at what it was. He immediately controlled the Sacred Sky warship to escape from the hundreds of muzzles. Nitian Hanxing's expression kept changing. Where did he get this thing? Even bigger than a Sacred Sky warship? Thump! How could the Sacred Sky warship be so easy to escape from? Over 100 beams of destructive light rained down, aiming directly at the control center of the Sacred Sky warship, where the father and son were located. A boundless explosion accompanied the devastating destructive power. The central control area of the Sacred Sky warship was directly smashed to pieces. The destructive power poured down, enveloping the father and son. Even as powerful as they were, they did not dare to face this power head-on. They immediately gave up on the Sacred Sky warship and fled by the edge of the destructive power. Bang! With a loud sound, the Sacred Sky warship was fiercely struck and sank into the ground. The father and son were still in a state of shock as they stared at the snow-white disk above their heads. It was only at this moment that Nitian finally realized that this object was somewhat familiar. After recalling for a while, he took a deep breath and said, "This is the World Annihilation Plate of the First Emperor, the World Annihilation Emperor." No, it is a replica. It's a replica from back then. Back then, the 4 great empires jointly forged a replica of the World Annihilation Plate in an attempt to explore the end of the Endless Origin. This object caused a sensation for several eras. Although he was still a nobody at that time, how could he forget this object? It was rumored that the object was swallowed by the 9-headed god of the Endless Origin. How could it be retrieved? But no matter what, Su Yu and the others had also suffered a full blow from the Sacred Sky warship. Even if they were not dead, they would still be injured. However, the result made the pupils of the father and son shrink again. They saw that they were bathed in a yin-yang tai chi pattern of alternating black and white light. The beam of light from the 100 forbidden annihilation cannon was absorbed by the white half of the pattern and spat out from the black pattern. With one swallow and one spit, the destructive power was successfully diverted, without hurting them in the slightest. Nitian face changed drastically, and he cried out in shock, sky-splitting yin-yang style. This was the object that he had to obtain in order to enter the Lost Nation. To be able to withstand a blow from the Sacred Sky warship, it was clear that his obsession with this object was correct. Nitian nodded deeply. Good. Good. Su Yu, you had the guts to ambush me. You should have expected what would happen to you, right? Su Yu said lightly, "Of course I expected it. That is, I will step on your dead body and end the grievances between you and me." Ha 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 ha, I admire your courage, but I also like to get rid of people like you with my own hands. Nitian laughed lightly. He was still talking, but his figure suddenly became blurred. Yongye Wuhing's expression changed slightly. Not good. That is a shadow, he has already made his move. Almost at this moment, Nitian extremely cold voice sounded in his ears. It's too late. 7 defying fists. A fist filled with the intent to destroy all living beings blasted toward Su Yu's back. It was this fist that Su Yu had no resistance against in the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior. But today was different from the past. Su Yu did not look back, as if he had been aware of it. Behind him, 6 blood-red eyes appeared silently. Every eye shot out a translucent black beam of light that pierced through the space behind them. 6 Tao of natural harmony. Puff. 6 black beams of light silently penetrated the incoming fist, and the defying will contained in the fist immediately collapsed. The beam of light did not slow down and bombarded Nitian body, sending him flying thousands of feet away. 8 black wounds appeared all over his body, and blood kept spurting out. Nitian expression changed greatly, and he was extremely dignified. The 6 Tao of natural harmony of Kunlun? In just 5 years, you actually succeeded in cultivating it? Who the hell are you? Finally, even Nitian realized that something was wrong with Su Yu. Su Yu said indifferently, "It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I will make you stay here today." The 6 Tao of natural harmony was an injury that the Moonwatch sect leader could not heal in a short period of time. As soon as the battle began, Nitian was injured. "You seem to have forgotten me." A strand of an indifferent voice suddenly assaulted him. It was Nitian Hanxing. At the moment when his father launched an attack, he also chose the most suitable opportunity. 7 Defying Fists. It was also the 7 Defying Fists, but Nitian Hanxing's fist was full of absolute defying will. It was overbearing, tyrannical, and murderous, extremely close to the extreme of all negative emotions. Yongye Wuhing's eyebrows suddenly jumped. The realm of level 2 deities. His heart was in great shock. He thought that after this retreat, he would be able to defeat Nitian Hanxing and avenge his previous humiliation. Who would have thought that his opponent had broken through to the realm of level 2 deities? His eyes were filled with deep unwillingness, and he shouted, "Let me!" Flying dragon in the sky. Yongye Wuhing's whole body flickered with the shadow of a dragon, as if he had turned into a giant dragon that was hundreds of feet long. With the terrible power of the wilderness, he attacked fiercely. However, his strength alone was far from enough to compete with the 7 Defying Fists. Yongye Chushue's beautiful eyes blinked, and her beautiful figure flickered as she flew out. Dragon Emperor's heavenly voice. A giant phantom dragon with a crown on its head appeared behind her, speaking in the dragon language. Chains of law descended from the sky, entangling Nitian Hanxing. However, it was still not enough. Bai Wanqing looked calm. She stretched out a slender finger and whispered, "A dream is like 1,000 years." Groups of dragon shadows flew out of her fingertips and quickly merged into the 7 Defying Fists, transferring the boundless defying will to another time and space. Saint Luoxue was unwilling to be left behind. She formed a seal with her hands and uttered some obscure words, soul-destroying lifeless curse. An amazing wave of sorcery power turned into ripples and quickly spread out. The 4 of them joined forces. 3 of them displayed the unprecedented magic power of the epoch-making dragon, and 1 of them displayed the supreme sorcery of the Moonwatch sect leader. Even the proud Nitian Hanxing's expression changed slightly at this moment. He changed his attack and hurriedly retreated. Fortunately, the 7 Defying Fists offset most of their attacks, and only a small part of them fell on his body, injuring him. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Nitian Hanxing's eyes shone with a cold light. Good. Good. A group of ants in the past has also obtained good fortune. However, you want to fight against me with this? It's still early. Swoosh. Nitian Hanxing turned into a dark lightning and rushed into the group of 4 with a terrible fighting spirit. The 4 of them also fought with the former number 1 genius of the God realm, as if they were facing a great enemy. On Su Yu's side, Nitian was losing ground. Having lost the way of the defying will, he fell from the level of breaking through the shackles of level 1 to the ordinary level 2. Now that he was seriously injured, he could not exert even half of his strength. He was forced into a corner by Su Yu's boundless fighting will. Clang! The divine weapon that Su Yu had transformed into crushed everything with an incomparable fighting spirit and bombarded Nitian Guyun's body. Just like the situation in the dream that day, Nitian Guyun was bombarded by this powerful blow until his whole body cracked, and divine blood splattered. However, Su Yu's fighting spirit was not extinguished. Instead, it became stronger and stronger, reaching a higher peak. It turned into a giant sword, carrying the fighting spirit that could destroy heaven and earth, and slash down from the sky. This slash was enough to destroy the body and soul of the former emperor. However, at the critical moment, Nitian Hanxing shook off the four of them and rushed out like a black lightning, rescuing Nitian Guyun. Yongya Wuheng chased after him angrily. "You want to leave?" Space transportation open. Nitian Hanxing did not even turn his head as he shouted. The sacred sky ship that had fallen to the ground suddenly shot out a space ripple, teleporting the father and son away. This was obviously a means of escape that had been prepared for a long time, but the father and son did not expect to use it at this moment. Somewhere in the God realm, hundreds of trillions of miles away from the lost nation, Nitian Hanxing and his son fell from it. They had successfully escaped. With the help of his son, Nitian Guyun staggered and leaned against the stone pillar, panting deeply to heal his injuries. His face was gloomy. In just 5 years, he has become so strong. And those 3 ants, they have changed so much. And that replica of the world annihilation plate, where did they get it? Such a big failure made Nitian Guyun's heart full of shame. As he spoke, he found that his son was staring at him and could not help but say, "Hanxing, do you have something to say?" Nitian Hanxing nodded and said faintly, "Alone, we are no match for them." Nitian Guyun deeply agreed. Indeed, with the 5 of them working together, I am afraid that even a second-level heaven may not be able to do anything to them. So, his words were continued by Nitian Hanxing, so, I think that we, father and son, should combine into one. Suddenly, Nitian Guyun's heart skipped a beat. Before he could react, a dark palm silently penetrated his chest from behind. Nitian Guyun looked back in disbelief, and what he saw was a cold, ferocious and ruthless face. "You," Nitian Hanxing said indifferently, "don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame your father. You have long lost the way of defying, and become a useless person." After a battle, how could Nitian Hanxing not see that his father had lost the will of defying? "Father taught me that useless trash should be eliminated. All the trash in my hands over the years have died. I think father should not be an exception," Nitian Hanxing said coldly and ruthlessly. With a pull of his palm, he grabbed a solid silver-white celestial source, as well as all the blood of the heaven-defying divine warrior in his body. In front of Nitian Guyun, Nitian Hanxing raised his head and swallowed it. Looking at his father, whose aura was gradually weakening, Nitian Hanxing said, "Father, rest in peace. You and I have become one. I will avenge you." His momentum soared at this moment. Chapter 1475. If it was between ordinary gods, this method of stripping each other's divine source and bloodline would not work at all. However, the bloodline of the heaven-defying divine warrior could be digested with the inverse will. Under the inverse will, Nitian Guyun's celestial energy sphere was forcibly integrated into Nitian Hanxing's body, causing his celestial energy sphere to grow explosively. Although he had just broken through to the level 2 deity realm, the amount of God source he had now surpassed his father's peak, reaching the limit of level 2 deity realm. If it wasn't for the fact that the growth of his godly spirit was too fast and unstable, he might have even become a level 1 deity. In Nitian Guyun's body, the bloodline inherited from the emperor had also been integrated into Nitian Hanxing's body, making his defying will even more extreme. He had once been domineering, exterminating all those who refused to obey him. Now, he was close to insanity, acting as if he was the sole ruler. After a few breaths, the surge gradually stabilized. Nitian Hanxing clenched his fists, his face contorted, This day has finally come. The throne of the heaven-defying nation is mine. The god domain is mine. The entire lost nation is mine. Everything in this world belongs to me, Nitian Hanxing. Cough cough, Nitian Guyan coughed heavily. His sharp eyes were slowly covered with a layer of dark shadow of death. He looked at the blurry Nitian Hanxing. Unexpectedly, after experiencing the initial disbelief, he looked relieved and even a little gratified. Good! You are indeed the son that I, Nitian Guyan, have taught. You are my pride, and I can die in peace. The succession of the heaven-defying nation's monarchs was filled with bloodshed and cruelty. Even in his generation, he still hadn't gotten rid of it. He had long since prepared for this day. Nitian Hanxing stared at him indifferently, as if he was a stranger. If you have any last words, you can say them, for the sake of my father. Nitian Guyan looked up to the sky and chuckled. He was as calm as ever. Killing Su Yu is my father's ultimate wish. If he doesn't die, my heaven-defying bloodline will be the one to bury him. Are you done? Nitian Hanxing asked. Nitian Guyan slowly closed his eyes and quietly welcomed the reincarnation of the king of the heaven-defying kingdom. If that's all, then as your son, I'll tell you some final words. Nitian Hanxing said coldly, first of all, I don't need to be trained. Everything I get depends on myself. Who do you think you are? You only gave birth to me. Do you think you are qualified to train me? Secondly, Su Yu is a great threat to me, and I will do my best to eradicate him. I don't need you to teach me this. At this moment, his defying will was so strong that it could no longer tolerate any existence above him, even if it was his biological father. Nitian Guyan, who had his eyes closed, trembled and barely opened his eyes. His blurry eyes seemed to have seen something from Nitian Hanxing. He murmured, "He has gathered too much inverse will and has reached the limit of what he can bear. Is he about to achieve the inverse demon body?" In his memory there was an obscure record. In the past, the heaven-defying divine warrior's defiance will had exceeded its limit, causing it to fall into a state of madness and devour the world. Countless Star River overlords had died because of this. 8 sovereigns had worked together to suppress it in the ancient mysterious ice for 10,000 years. As such, he gradually came to his senses and successfully controlled the enormous inverse will. And from then on, his strength skyrocketed, surpassing the 7 emperors in one fell swoop, becoming the second strongest, second only to the World Annihilation Emperor. Now, the appearance of Nitian Hanxing was somewhat similar to the situation of the heaven-defying divine warrior in the past. If he could not withstand the excessive inverse will, like the heaven-defying divine warrior who was trapped in the ancient mysterious ice, he would gradually wake up and return to the body of a living creature. From then on, he would be invincible and invincible. Or, his soul would be destroyed by the inverse will, and he would be transformed into a demon. From then on, he would be controlled by the demon to become a god and become an inverse demon. If this was the case, Nitian Hanxing would be dead in essence, leaving only an existence called the inverse demon. Oh! Nitian Guyan smiled, and his smile was indescribably gloomy. Good son, work hard to absorb the inverse will. Whether you become a demon or not, this world will suffer disaster. If Nitian Guyan controlled the inverse will, his strength would greatly improve, and he would unify the world. Under his rule, how could the living creatures have a good life? If he failed and became an inverse demon, it would be even more terrible. The power of the inverse demon was beyond words. At least, at that time, the 8 sovereigns were unmatched. Moreover, killing was second nature. At that time, the lost nation would suffer a catastrophe. No matter what the result was, after his death, the lost nation would suffer. After that, with a twisted smile, he closed his eyes. The monarch of a dynasty died in the desolate ruins. Nitian Hanxing looked at his body indifferently, turned around, and disappeared without a look back. At the battlefield, the battle had ended, but the remaining breath was still there. Anyone who approached this place would feel uneasy. Yongye Wuheng gritted his teeth, and his heart was heavy. Nitian Hanxing actually broke through to the second level of heaven. Now that he survived the disaster, who knows what realm he will be in the next time. Regarding the heaven-defying clan, the God realm and the other Shotgun dynasty all had a cautious attitude. There was no other reason than that the heaven-defying clan was too strange. Every time they came back from the dead, they could burst out with greater potential. Yongye Chushua also felt that it was a pity to see her brother kill his enemy with his own hand. Who would have thought that Nitian Hanxing was not fated to die? Bai Wanqing comforted them. Don't be discouraged. Although Nitian Hanxing has a great fortune, we also have infinite potential to tap. We have learned a little bit of the 3 great magical powers of the epic-making dragon, and we can join forces to fight against a level 2 deity. If we practice to the level 2, Nitian Hanxing may not be our match. Yongye Wuheng's eyes gradually calmed down, and he cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Miss Bai, Wuheng understands." Yongye Chushua smiled. She also wanted to comfort her brother with this. She couldn't help but worry about Suyu, only to find that Suyu had disappeared. Well, Luo Xue was also missing. Looking down, she saw 2 figures standing side by side on the fallen sacred sky warship. Vixen. Yongye Chushua's eyes narrowed. If we are not careful, we will be taken advantage of. She immediately teleported to Su Yu's side, facing Luo Xue. Yongye Wuheng shook his head with a wry smile and said, "Let's have a look. It's the sacred sky warship. I didn't expect the heaven-defying divine emperor to duplicate it." Su Yu sized up the sacred sky warship carefully, evaluating it from its material quality, speed, functions, and other aspects. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Normally speaking, the era is constantly developing, and the civilization of the new era is bound to surpass the past. However, our current civilization, compared to the era of the ancient god realm, could only be considered as a barbaric tribe. Yongye Wuheng had a deep feeling about this. This is the normal pattern, but what our divine territory suffered was a heavy blow from the destruction of civilization. Countless civilizations were annihilated, leaving behind scattered remnants for our descendants. Naturally, it is difficult to catch up with the past civilizations. I really don't know why that sinful woman, the demon dragon, destroyed my god's domain. In fact, this question was also a question that Suyu had in mind. The sinful lady and the demon dragon would definitely not waste their energy to destroy the ancient god realm for no reason. What was the reason for their actions? The divine 9-dragon cauldron? Back in the god realm, apart from the 9 monarchs, the only thing that was worthy of attention was ancient god 9-dragon's inheritance, the god cauldron. The group of people inspected the sacred sky warship. The central control room was destroyed, but the rest of the parts were intact, especially in the sacred sky warship. There were no major casualties among the key personnel who operated the various parts. With a smile on his face, Yongye Wuheng said, "Shouldn't we thank Nitian Hanxing for giving us such a generous gift before we leave?" As long as the central control room was repaired, they would obtain an extremely powerful killing weapon out of thin air. This item alone was comparable to the power of half of the empire. If Su Yu reorganized his own forces, such as the Snow White World Annihilation Plate, the 50 level 3 God Realm generals, and the wizard tribe that he was on good terms with, he would definitely be able to dominate the divine territory. How was it? Were the people in the sacred sky warship willing to surrender to us? Su Yu asked Yongye Wuheng. Yongye Wuheng patted his chest. How could such a small matter be difficult? Under our persuasion, they all abandoned the dark side for the light and decided to follow us from now on. Su Yu nodded. This couldn't be better. A sacred sky warship and a world annihilation plate of the same level. With these 2 peerless weapons in hand, the odds of success on their return to the Star River God realm were extremely high. By the way, we found a large number of weapons in the warehouse of the Sacred Sky warship. According to our understanding, they should be weapons of a lost civilization. Su Yu's eyes lit up and he immediately went to take a look. He found that half of the warehouse of the Sacred Sky warship was filled with various forms of civilization weapons. There were formation-destroying beasts, superior extermination cannons, and 7 or 8 huge unknown civilization weapons that looked like robots. Staring at the bronze-colored robots, Su Yu felt that they looked very familiar. If he remembered correctly, Wang Yunxian of the Great Eastern Alliance had once refined a similar puppet. However, that was only at the early stage of the prospective deity level. It was far from being comparable to this batch of giant puppets that exuded the aura of a level 4 deity. What particularly concerned Su Yu was that there was an unfinished puppet here. Its physique was 10 times that of an ordinary humanoid puppet, and it was tens of millions of feet tall. Its body was inlaid with various energy stones, and it was filled with extremely majestic energy. Su Yu and the others looked at this puppet with awe. Yongye Chushua stared at it and said, "What a powerful puppet! If it is completed, I'm afraid its power will be more than that of a level 3 deity, right?" "More than level 3? It can even reach level 2. Yongye Wuheng grabbed the person in charge of forging the puppet. The person in charge was a little proud. "It's a pity that we didn't have time to complete it, and we didn't find a suitable pilot. Otherwise, Nitian Gyun and his son might not have been defeated." Yongye Wuheng kicked him hard. "You sound very dissatisfied, don't you?" A hint of murderous intent flashed, causing the person in charge to tremble and shut his mouth immediately. If he was dissatisfied, he would have been killed long ago. Su Yu looked at the giant puppet and said, "Hurry up with the completion. In addition, I will dispatch a group of skilled craftsmen, all of whom will be led by you personally. Be sure to teach them the forging techniques and method." How could he say no to the words of the greatest lord himself? Chapter 1476. One day later, at the border of the heaven-defying empire in Yongzhen City. 5 years ago, the heaven-defying empire had stationed tens of millions of troops here. How majestic was that! Now, tens of millions of troops had been buried in the lost nation, and the heaven-defying empire had been defeated. The whole nation was shocked. The once glorious Yongzhen City was now in a state of depression. In an inn, a few idle guests were drinking and chatting about the world. This time, the heaven-defying empire was defeated. The king was killed, and the tens of millions of troops never returned. Their situation was miserable, only a little better than the Empire of Darkness, which was about to be destroyed. Who said it wasn't? Our king was so powerful, but he died in the lost nation like this. It was really unexpected. Tell me, how did the wizards in the lost nation suddenly become so powerful? In the past, our empire suppressed them, but this time, the sacrifice was so tragic that I can't bear to look at it. In the treasure chest of the inn, a group of 5 people listened quietly. Knowing that Nitian Gyun had died, all 5 of them were surprised. Yongye Wuheng pondered and said, "Brother Su, the injuries you caused to Nitian Gyun that day, did he die?" Su Yu shook his head. "He did not die because of me." Chushue frowned. "That's strange. With Nitian Hanxing protecting him, who could kill him? The other emperors were busy with their own affairs. How could they have the time to ambush the father and son?" Suddenly, Yongye Wuheng frowned deeply. "I once heard my father say that the throne of the heaven-defying empire has always been more bloody than that of the other royal sacred factions. There are often cases of patricide and usurpation. If there is no other reason, it should be Nitian Hanxing." Surprisingly, no one refuted this. If there was anyone who was most likely to do such a treacherous thing, it would be Nitian Hanxing. Su Yu's eyes were indifferent and he was not surprised. He himself was a person who had been blessed by the defying will, and he knew that Nitian Hanxing had survived the disaster. He just didn't know to what extent he had changed this time. Nutian Hanxing's whereabouts are unknown. It is unnecessary for us to worry. It is better to improve our strength. Sooner or later we will fight him again, Suyu said. They nodded and said no more. If there is nothing else, we can leave for the Endless Origin now. Suyu could not hold back his emotions. Yongye Chushua hesitated slightly and said, Can we go back to the Empire of Darkness? I want to know how Father is. Although Yongye Wuheng didn't say anything, he couldn't hide the worry on his face since he returned to the god's domain. After all, he was their biological father. He had raised them and treated them well, so their relationship was still there. This place was quite far from the dynasty, so detailed information was scarce. One could only find out if they headed to the dynasty. Suyu said, Sure, let's set off now. The siblings were filled with gratitude. They bowed and said, Thank you, Brother Su. Soon, at the border of the Empire of Darkness, the northern Shui nation, which used to belong to the Empire, was now separated from it and incorporated into the territory of the heaven-defying Empire. The cities at the border were abandoned, and there were wandering commoners everywhere. There were also defeated generals who were fleeing for their lives, fleeing into the ruins. As they passed by the city, they were filled with emotions. The Empire of Darkness, which used to be glorious and prosperous in the past, had collapsed just like that. The affairs of the world were inconstant, and the fate of the Empire was just like these poor commoners, unpredictable. In the abandoned city, miserable screams and the sound of people fleeing in panic rang out, mixed with the sound of horse hooves and mocking laughter. Everyone was high up in the sky, and they could clearly see the situation in the city. It was a group of soldiers with translucent bodies. They suddenly entered the city in an ambush, looting property, abducting women, and arresting young men. As for the elderly and children, those who dared to resist were all killed. The commoners in front of them sensed that something was wrong and fled out of the city. But how could they escape the pursuit of the soldiers? Along the way, they fell down like wheat, softly lying in a pool of blood. Suyu and the others were all existences who had been cultivating for many years, and they were used to seeing life and death in battles. Such a scene could not move them at all. The world is in chaos. Suyu sighed softly and waved his sleeves in the air, bringing up a tornado, accurately rolling the translucent soldiers in the city into the sky. The people in the city were at a loss and fled out of the city. Yongye Wuheng was surprised. The suffering people in the world are like billions of grains of sand in the Ganges River. How can you save them all by yourself? He did not expect that Suyu, with his profound cultivation, would still be kind enough to save unrelated people. In the eyes of the gods, ordinary people were no different from weeds. Suyu said, I can't save the people in the world, but can I ignore the suffering of the people in front of me and stand by? Don't be afraid to do good. Do your best to have a clear conscience. The group of people listened to him and did not quite understand. Suyu summoned a group of soldiers and stared at their clothes and skin color. If I remember correctly, you should be the soldiers of the Shui nation in the North Territory, right? Why, not long after the betrayal, did you kill your former compatriots? The soldiers who were dragged here turned pale. How could they not know that they had encountered a powerful person? Immediately, they begged for mercy. Suyu said, Where is your commander? The commander is besieging the imperial city. We don't have enough food and soldiers, so he ordered us to loot the rear. Besieging the imperial city? Suyu's eyes flickered slightly. Who is your commander? It is the king of the Shui nation in the North Territory himself. He personally served as the commander and took advantage of the situation to attack the imperial city. Hearing this, Suyu smiled, and there was undisguised contempt in his expression. Yongye Chushue was so angry that she laughed. Shameless. In the past, he failed to assassinate her, and now he took advantage of the chaos to besiege the imperial city. Lead the way. Yongye Chushue's pretty face turned cold. Led by the soldiers, they went straight to the army camp of the Shui nation in the North Territory. 10 days later, in the Imperial City. The Imperial City that used to be dazzling in gold and jade had already fallen. The Southern Alliance Army, the Taiching Army, and the Ice and Fire Army had all set up camps in the city. In addition, there were also forces like the Shui nation in the North Territory who took advantage of the chaos to loot resources in the city. In the tent of the Shui nation in the North Territory, the king of the Shui nation in the North Territory, who was wearing a crown on his head, was beaming with joy as he met the leaders of various small forces. They gathered together and enthusiastically discussed the strategy to attack the city tomorrow. "Thank you for your respect. We have formed a righteous alliance to crusade against the royal family of the Empire of Darkness. If we succeed, you will all be heroes who have saved the people from disaster," the king of the Shui nation in the North Territory said passionately. A leader of a faction, who had the cultivation of level 3, cupped his fists and said, "I am not a hero. We are all people who have been trapped by the Empire of Darkness. It would be best if we could save the people along the way." Everyone echoed him. A group of mobs whose goal was to loot, but they labeled themselves as righteous. Countless people had died in their hands, but now they were shamelessly boasting that they were righteous. While they were drinking, the king of the Shui nation in the North Territory raised his glass to an inconspicuous force at the end. "Come on, everyone, let's welcome our new member today, Leader Wen Xian." Wen Xian was a middle-aged woman. Time had left an indelible vicissitude on her jade-like face. She smiled faintly. Her smile was relieved, as if she had seen through the clouds of the world. It was as if she had seen through the mortal world. All the leaders looked at her with a hint of fear in their eyes. This woman named Wen Xian was a particularly active force in the divine realm, wandering around the ruins of the Empire of Darkness. In this force, apart from Wen Xian, who was at level 3, she also had several subordinates at level 4 to fight for her. Her force was one of the few that was not hated by the people. They did not engage in burning, killing, or looting. Their main business was the rare materials in the Lost Nation, and their business was good. Therefore, she had gathered a large number of experts. In the nearby area, the organization Truth-Seeking Heart was very famous. The king of the Shui nation in the North Territory had invited her many times, and this time, she was finally invited to participate in the siege planned tomorrow. When Xian responded to the crowd's toast, the king of the Shui nation said, "With Wen Xian's participation, I believe we will be able to enter the city successfully with the armies of the 3 empires. Wen Xian will get a lot of benefits." Wen Xian put down her glass and said solemnly, "I'm not here for the wealth in the city, but for my 3 subordinates who are trapped in the city. If the inner city is destroyed, they will suffer an unexpected disaster." What? Everyone frowned. The Shui nation in the North Territory did not expect that there was another reason for her to agree. "I will help you break the inner city, but the battle after that will have nothing to do with me," Wen Xian said indifferently. As soon as she said this, some people were dissatisfied. "Leader Wen Xian, if you don't join us, we will be ambushed by the soldiers in the city if the news is leaked. Indeed, it's not that we don't trust you, but that you know something you shouldn't know." Wen Xian listened quietly, and then glanced at them with her crystal eyes. "So what? It's very simple. Either you join us, or, before the siege ends, you have to stay here temporarily. In addition, please hand over your communication device." A leader whose status was second only to the king of the Shui nation in the North Territory said. His name was Lu Shi. He used to be the largest underground organization in the area, which dealt in assassinations, robberies, theft, and other illegal businesses. His subordinates were numerous, including many bloodthirsty outlaws. His vicious reputation spread far and wide, intimidating the creatures of a region. When the empires were in glory, they were suppressed and hid in the dark. Now, they showed up openly and became the second most powerful person in the so-called alliance of justice and order. Wen Xian smiled. What if I don't choose either? How are you going to wrong me? Lu Shi sneered. The rise of Wen Xian's force had more or less conflicts with him. At least 10 people had been executed for robbing Wen Xian's transport team. Lu Shi had kept this in mind for a long time. Now that they were in the same camp, Lu Shi was already displeased. Now that Wen Xian's attitude was so rude and unreasonable, he couldn't help but have a murderous intent rise in his heart. He slowly stood up and said, Leader Wen Xian has always been confident in herself. I want to see if I can make Leader Wen Xian feel wronged. Wen Xian said indifferently, sure. Lu Shi sneered and suddenly attacked Wen Xian. His figure changed in an instant, like flashes of lightning, making it hard for people to tell which was the real one. The most valuable thing was that no matter if it was the real body or the shadow, the magical powers he used were all real. This meant that he had the combat power of hundreds of people. Chapter 1477. Only with such strength could she subdue those outlaws. Seeing thousands of attacks aimed at Wen Xian's head, everyone was worried for her. However, Wen Xian was still motionless. She just made a gesture with one hand and uttered some obscure words. Then, an invisible wave floated out, turning into a radiation shape, sweeping the surroundings. In an instant, hundreds and thousands of phantoms screamed at the same time. Most of the shadows disappeared in an instant. Only one figure, bleeding from all 7 apertures, covered his head and roared, This is witchcraft. You are a member of the sorcerer tribe. No one had expected that the famous leader of Wen Xian was a member of the sorcerer tribe. Wen Xian's eyes turned cold. While the shadow was still on the seat, she had already flown to a distance of 30 meters away from him. She made a gesture with one hand and a soul-destroying spell was shot out. The monarch of the Shui nation's face darkened. He slapped the table and flashed over. Freeze the world! He shouted, and the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped to 0. The speed of the radiation waves slowed down and gradually weakened. However, Wen Xian cast another spell, sacrificial spell. This curse did not have any offensive power, but when the ripples came into contact with the soul-extinguishing curse's ripples, the soul-extinguishing curse that was on the verge of being extinguished suddenly surged. Not only did it recover to its peak state, but it also broke through the shackles of the frozen world. The monarch of the Shui nation's eyelids twitched violently. How could he still dare to defend Lu Shi? Using the ice and snow substitute, he narrowly escaped with his life. The doppelganger turned into black dust, and Lu Shi was directly hit. The dignified leader of the dark organization, a person whose name made people pale in fear, had unexpectedly died on the spot and turned into black powder. The whole hall was silent. They were all shocked by Wen Xian's ruthless means. Even the monarch of the Shui nation was frightened. He knew that he was no match for her. After killing Lu Shi, Wen Xian looked around expressionlessly and said, "Is there anyone else who wants to make me feel wronged?" Everyone who was stared at by her avoided eye contact with her, especially the leaders of the forces who had been clamoring just now. Their backs were drenched in cold sweat. Damn it, this woman from the sorcerer tribe is so fierce. She is too damn powerful. She should not be an ordinary person in the sorcerer tribe, right? Everyone communicated via voice transmission, and they were extremely shocked. Looking around, Wen Xian said, "Since there's no one here, then we'll carry on as usual. Tomorrow, I'll help you attack the city, but I won't care about your lives anymore. Do you have any objections?" Everyone cursed silently. Who would dare to object? The one with the biggest objection was already lying on the ground and turning into ashes. The king of the Shui kingdom of the northern region changed his expression several times. He turned from grim to a warm smile and said, "Leader Wen Xian's strength is extraordinary. We admire you very much. Our righteous alliance is very willing to cooperate with you." As he spoke, he raised his glass from afar. "Happy working with you." The rest of the people also raised their cups, most of them looking happy. It was as if the violent conflict just now wasn't between them. Amidst the joyous and harmonious atmosphere, a discordant voice descended from the ninth heaven, like a thunderclap exploding in everyone's ears. A disorderly mob. His voice was like thunder, shaking the chi and blood in their bodies. Shwar, in the midst of everyone's bewilderment, the figures of a man and a woman flashed like ghosts. As the remaining yin and yang chi dissipated, the two's true appearances were revealed. The crowd was stunned at first, then shocked again. Finally, they cried out in shock, "The wanted criminal of the four great empires, Su Yu, the princess of the Empire of Darkness, Yongye Chushue." The appearance of the two of them was like two delicious pieces of fresh meat falling into the den of a pack of hungry wolves. As a wanted criminal, the value of the resources awarded to Su Yu was needless to say. No creature could resist the temptation. And Yongye Chushue, as the princess of the Empire of Darkness, was equivalent to a powerful bargaining chip in their hands at this time. The appearance of the two of them turned their shock into ecstasy. The king of the Shui kingdom of the northern region was the most surprised. As the mortal enemy of almost all the descendants of the royal family of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory, the king of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory wanted to kill Su Yu 10,000 times over. However, he never dreamed that Su Yu, who had disappeared without a trace, would appear in front of him. After a brief moment of shock, the king of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory suddenly stood up, bursting with murderous intent. His eyes were slightly bloodshot as he roared, "Get out of my way! I want to kill him with my own hands!" Shwa, his body was like lightning, piercing through the void, and he went straight to Su Yu with an indomitable momentum. The unforgettable hatred in his heart was awe-inspiring. However, a beautiful figure took a gentle step forward, and a pair of cold eyes were full of coldness. At the same time, the other party stretched out her seemingly slender palm and struck the residual shadow of the other party. Bang! The king of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory left like lightning and returned like lightning. The difference was that he was standing when he left and lying down when he returned. His body directly smashed a large piece of the building, burying it in the dust. The crowd gasped. A single palm could seriously injure the king of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory? Plop! The king of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory crawled out of the ruins and stared at the owner of the snowy eyes. His pupils shrank. You have broken the seal and recovered to level 3? No, you are stronger than before." Back in the woods of drunken immortals of the North Territory, Yongye Chushue risked her life to break the seal and fought with him at level 3. At that time, he could still fight for a few rounds. Now, she was blown away by a single palm. Yongye Chushue said coldly, "Humph! That day, you took advantage of the seal on me and almost put me in a hopeless situation. Did you ever think I would come back?" That day, she was almost raped by her son, Shui Qinshan, and the beasts of the royal family of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory. She survived because of Su Yu. Thinking back on that day, Yongye Chushue's killing intent was even stronger. The king of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory was frightened. He shouted, "Everyone, this woman is the princess of the Empire of Darkness. If we can capture her, the royal family will not dare to take action. A great opportunity is right in front of us. Don't miss it." However, the crowd looked at each other, indifferent. What a joke. Judging by the power of the palm just now, did he think they were blind? Obviously, he did not use his full strength. An ordinary palm could injure the king of the Shui kingdom of the North Territory. If he was enraged, he would not even know how he died. However, there were also gamblers. Man succeeds and God disposes. The opportunity is right in front of us. If we don't try it, it will be difficult for God to help us. A bearded level 3 deity and a black-clothed woman stepped forward and attacked at the same time. As soon as they attacked, the other 3 leaders also chose to attack. She was facing the siege of 5 people of the same level at the same time. Su Yu took a step forward, ready to share some of the burden. "Brother Su, I will do it myself," Yongye Chushue said. "I follow you to be trained, not to be a flower that needs to be protected." Hearing this, Su Yu hesitated for a moment, then stopped and stood with his arms crossed, watching quietly. Yongye Chushue blinked her snowy eyes and made a seal with her hands. The dragon blood in her body was boiling. From a distance, her body seemed to be burning with a layer of blood-red flame. Against the flame, a dragon emperor with a crown on his head appeared behind her, speaking in the obscure dragon language. "Dragon Emperor Heavenly Voice," Yongye Chushue said calmly. The dragon language of the dragon emperor behind her disappeared into the void. Suddenly, the shadow of the chain of rules fell from the sky, binding all 5 people. Then, Yongye Chushue clenched her 5 fingers, and the chain of rules suddenly tightened. The 5 level 3 deities were killed on the spot. Not even a trace of their souls was left. 5 level 3 deities had been killed so easily. What shocked them even more was that the shape of the chain of rules was very similar to the legendary chain of rules. The king of the Shui nation of the North Territory finally changed his face, and his heart was pounding wildly. This was the real strength of Yongye Chushue. She killed 5 enemies in one breath. He gasped. When he saw Yongye Chushue looking at him, he was even more frightened. With a flash, he hid behind Wenxian, cupped his fists and pleaded, "Leader Wenxian, please help us. As a member of the Alliance of Justice and Order, I hope you can help us. We will thank you later." Wenxian looked at him with her hands behind her back and said calmly, "Which one do you want me to deal with? The man or the woman?" The king of the Shui nation of the North Territory stared at Yongye Chushue deeply. "The woman? Leader Wenxian, you just need to hold him back for a while and let me kill the man. You don't need to fight with her." "Kill him?" Wenxian showed an imperceptible smile. The monarch of the Shui nation in the Northern Territory nodded heavily. "Yes." Among all the people present, the only one who could compete with Yongye Chushue was Wenxian. "All right," Wenxin said and walked toward Yongye Chushue. Seeing this, the king of the Shui nation of the Northern Territory felt relieved. He stared at Su Yu viciously and said in a ferocious voice, "Since you are seeking your own death, don't blame me for using your head as a sacrifice to my sons who died in vain." However, the next moment, what made the monarch of the northern region Shui nation dumbfounded was when Wenxian walked toward Yongye Chushue with her hands clasped behind her back, but she didn't attack. Instead, she walked past her. The strange thing was that Yongye Chushue didn't do anything. Instead, she looked at the monarch of the Shui nation in the Northern Territory with a mocking smile. Wenxian walked past Yongye Chushue and came in front of Su Yu. She put down her hands but did not attack him. Instead, she bowed and said, "Greetings, General." Su Yu wore a faint smile. "I didn't expect to meet you again, Wuxin." The so-called Wenxin was none other than the Helm Leader of the Saint Lady Temple, Helm Leader Wuxin. After they parted ways outside Fan Capital that day, she went to the Divine Realm alone to take a look. She never thought that they would meet again one day. Although she was in the Divine Realm, she kept the wizard tribe in mind and used the convenience of the caravan to inquire about the situation of the wizard tribe. How could she not know that Su Yu had become the commander of the wizard tribe in Xing Capital? Wuxin smiled helplessly. "Could it be that because I didn't fulfill my promise to sign up for you, fate has arranged for us to meet here? Was it faintly fated?" Su Yu vaguely sensed the trajectory of fate. Yes, he should have left for the Endless Origin directly. It was Yongye Chushue and her sister who made Su Yu change his mind. Could it be that her promise to sacrifice her life for Su Yu was still lingering between them? A sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. After a pause, Wuxin glanced at the stiff face of the king of the Northern Territory Shui nation and said with a faint smile, "General, someone ordered me to kill your maidservant. Please make a decision." Chapter 1478. The hall was dead silent. Was Wen Xian also one of Su Yu's people? Yongye Chushue was already strong enough, and now there was Wen Xian? Some people who saw that the situation was not good had already slipped away. However, as soon as they sneaked out of the hall, they were forced back. "Haha, did you ask Brother Su for permission to leave?" Luo Xue, the holy maiden, stopped those who had escaped with a spell and brought them back. Wen Xian was delighted. "The holy maiden is here too? The holy maiden?" The people in the hall turned pale. The holy maiden of the wizard tribe was here too. Da-da, another 2 footsteps sounded, and Yongye Wuheng and Bai Wanqing walked in. The undisguised dragon might made them shudder with fear. There are 2 more? The leaders of the forces swallowed hard. Intuition told them that the 2 of them were no weaker than the former. Plop, the king of the Shui nation knelt on one knee and said, "Greetings, Prince Wuheng, Princess Yongye." There was no need to think about escaping in front of 4 powerful masters. Yongye Wuheng's eyes were cold. "I dare not accept a subordinate like you, who not only betrayed us when we were in trouble, but also killed your way into the capital, burning, killing, and looting." The king of the Shui nation quibbled. "I beg the prince and the princess to investigate this. I was forced by the heaven-defying empire, and I did not mean it." "Hee, what a good forced." Yongye Chushue was so angry that she laughed. "You tried to kill me in the past and tried to use my blood to write the history of the Shui nation in the North Territory. Was it also the heaven-defying empire that forced you?" Staring at him, Yongye Chushue's killing intent intensified. She asked Su Yu, "Is he still useful?" Su Yu stared at the king of the Shui nation indifferently and said, "Kill him to avoid future trouble." This man was insidious and cruel, and he was flexible. Letting him go now would only cause more people to be killed. He might even threaten the king one day in the future. Su Yu's words determined the future of the Shui nation in the North Territory. The king of the Shui nation was shocked and hurriedly retreated. He stared at Su Yu and shouted bitterly, "Are you really going to kill us all? The royal family of the Northern Territory Shui nation will all die in your hands. Aren't you afraid of retribution?" Su Yu had an indifferent look on his face, and he said placidly, "If I killed the innocent and suffered the backlash of the great path of heaven and earth, I would accept my fate. But I killed vermin like you, who brought harm to the world, and there's no such thing as retribution. You'd better start over in your next life." A cold light flashed in Yongye Chushue's pretty eyes. Without any hesitation, she ended the life of the monarch of the northern Shui nation. A huge head was chopped off and blood splattered everywhere. It was a tragic and bloody scene. At the moment of his death, he did not feel the slightest bit of regret, only endless resentment. "You will not have a good ending." Su Yu's heart did not waver in the slightest. The number of enemies who had died in his hands was innumerable, and the number of people who had grievances against him was also innumerable. If there really was a curse, he would have died a long time ago. "General, how should we deal with the rest?" Wen Xian asked. Su Yu looked around at them. At this moment, their expressions were filled with fear and helplessness. However, not too long ago, they were butchers who had brought disaster to the region and caused endless massacres. Su Yu did not feel the slightest bit of sympathy for them. He said indifferently, "Search their souls. Those who have done evil will be killed on the spot. The rest will be spared from death." Under the joint efforts of the 4 of them, the people in the hall had no power to resist. They were baptized in blood. Among the 13 people, only 2 had just joined. Like Wen Xian, they had not had the time to do evil, so they escaped death. The rest, without exception, were beheaded. "Wuxin, how is the situation in the city?" Su Yu asked after they had dealt with the matter. Wuxin cast a regretful look at the Yongye siblings and sighed. "The city is about to collapse. Tomorrow, the 2 great empires and the Southern Coalition army will launch a general attack. The imperial city will not be able to hold on any longer." Yongye Wuheng said, My father's magical powers are unparalleled. For many years, the Empire has been secretly forging weapons of civilization, which are controlled by Shangguan Feiyu. It is impossible for the Imperial City to be breached so easily. That is the reason why they launched a general attack, Wuxin said. What do you mean? Yongye Chushua frowned. Wu Xian said deeply. Half a month ago, there was a small piece of news that an important member of the imperial court had disappeared from the face of the earth in a single night. I think this is why they dared to launch a general attack. There was no one in the city. Wasn't it the best time to launch a general attack? What? My father disappeared? Yongye Chushua was shocked. How is this possible? There are strong men at the level of the Tai Qin Yunluan, the Bing Huatsangxing, and the Mermaid Emperor guarding outside. Wouldn't it be difficult for my father to take away the important member in the city? Wuxin said, This is also the most incredible thing about this matter. It is indeed unbelievable that he disappeared without being noticed by them, unless there is an unimaginable master. However, if there is such a master, it would be a piece of cake to solve the predicament of the empire. Why did he only save the people and not the country? When Su Yu and the others heard this, it was a warning. There was indeed such a master. Yongye Chioma. The person who cheated the epic-making dragon's Dragon Ball was probably a terrifying level 1 existence. Indeed, he could take away the important member in the city quietly. Moreover, he was in the critical period of refining the Dragon Ball and could not be interrupted. Therefore, it was not convenient for him to save the country. The four of them looked at each other and were secretly shocked. It was him. The epic-making dragon had cast a seal on them and taught them the magical powers of the Dragon Clan in the hope that they could fight against Yongye Chioma and take back the Dragon Ball. Now was not the time for them to confront Yongye Chioma directly. Forget it. Since my father is safe and sound, we have nothing to worry about. Let's leave quickly. Yongye Chushua was relieved. Wuxin thought for a moment and said, Why don't I go with you? I can be of some help to you. Su Yu refused without hesitation. No way. This trip is dangerous. I can't take you with me. Her promise had touched fate and might come true. How could he let her go into danger? All right, I will stay in the Empire and keep an eye on the God Realm for you, Wuxin said. Then, she took out a ring from her sleeve and handed it to Su Yu. This is an ancient civilization weapon passed down by my ancestors from a martial artist when I was doing business in the God Realm for many years. I don't know its specific use, but it has defensive capabilities. It might be of some use to you. Su Yu looked at the item. It was an extremely old and cracked object. The ring was engraved with densely packed words. Su Yu had read all the languages of the various races but could not recognize them. Oh? This kind of ancient civilization weapon is rare. The Yongye siblings sized it up. At least in the history books of the Yongye bloodline, there is no record of such a civilization weapon. Su Yu said, An ancestral weapon? It's hard to trace its origins. Su Yu took the item and cupped his fist. Thank you. The group bid farewell and immediately set off for the Endless Origin. They passed by the 99 tribes in the south. The barbarian land had become even more barren because of the chaos of war. There was no one for thousands of miles, and bones were everywhere. The recent situation was caused by the mermaid tribe. I wonder what kind of creature the Mermaid Emperor is. He could single-handedly stir up a storm in the God Realm and destroy an empire that has been stable for millions of years. Yongye Chushua frowned deeply. Su Yu looked into the distance at an abandoned sacred sky warship stuck in the ground. His eyes were fixed. He was one of the few people who knew the origin of the Mermaid Emperor, a grave-guarding spirit who had occupied the body of the Mermaid Emperor. He came from the crevice of the mysterious Crystal Mountains. At that moment, inside the crevice, the demonic dragon suddenly opened his bloody eyes, emitting a bone-chilling bloody light. He said in a low voice, I sense the aura of the fragment of the rules. He is here. Chapter 1479. From behind the stone door, a woman's voice floated out. I sense the familiar aura of an old friend on his body. The mystic crystal mountain range quickly fell silent. It was so quiet that it was like the omen of a storm. As if sensing something, Suyu took a deep look at the glazed crystal mountains. What was the purpose of destroying 9 dragons' valley and the world-annihilating dragon? The 9 emperors had sacrificed themselves and used the supreme 9 emperors' tablet to seal them for hundreds of millions of years. Now, there were only 5 years left before they could break through the seal. Who would stop them then? Suyu could disregard the life and death of the people, but how long could he hide? The birth of the sinful woman had caused all living beings to perish. It was difficult for Suyu to remain unaffected. What's more, he had snatched the world annihilation dragon's fragment of laws, so it was inevitable that he would clash with the other party. After taking a deep breath, Suyu gazed in that direction and led the crowd into the endless origin. He was left behind in the ancient god domain, but he would come back again. Just like in the past, the endless origin was desolate and silent. Apart from the tomb guard spirits that occasionally appeared, there were no other living beings. Stepping into the range of the endless origin, one could deeply sense an indescribable sense of fear and pressure. It was as if there was a huge creature staring at them coldly in the dark. Nitian Wuheng frowned and said, "Back then, the 4 imperial dynasties joined forces to explore the endless origin, but they returned empty-handed and all of them perished here. Brother Su, we'd better be careful. At the very least, we need to find someone who is familiar with this area of water. Otherwise, it will be very bad if we accidentally enter a dangerous area." Back then, the 4 great empires had gathered countless experts, yet they still ended up like this, let alone them. Don't worry, there is someone who is familiar with this region of water, and she will be the most suitable person to lead the way for us. The 9 jade spiritual pearl on Suyu's arm flickered slightly, and a woman with long golden hair appeared from it. Its lower body was that of a fish, while its upper body was that of a human. A devastatingly beautiful face, like a precious jade in the darkness, refracted a gentle light that made one unable to shift their gaze away. Coupled with her smooth golden hair, she looked even more beautiful. Yongye Wuheng was dumbfounded, and he couldn't hide the amazement in his eyes. Even Yongye Chuxue and Luo Xue, who were equally beautiful, could not help but feel pressured. They couldn't deny that she was a beautiful woman who could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. The 2 women could not help but feel a little hostile. The pitiful mermaid princess had not yet recovered from the sudden space transfer when she was targeted by 2 level 3 deities. Shuddering violently, Green Bead felt suffocated. She didn't say a word. She was the princess of the mermaid tribe, who had fled with Suyu in the past. When she saw Suyu, Luzhu felt as if she had been saved. She took a quick step and hid behind Suyu, sticking close to him. She was terrified of the 2 unfriendly women. However, her unconscious actions attracted even more hostile gazes from them. Suyu smiled. Without batting an eyelid, he blocked their imposing manner and said, "Luzhu, they are my friends." Suyu introduced her to them as well. "This is the princess of the mermaid tribe. She escaped with me during the coup, and she is also my friend." Only then did Luo Xue and Yongye Chuxue put away their hostility. Lu Zhu took a deep breath and carefully stepped forward to pay her respects. "Greetings, seniors, greetings, young master." She was inwardly shocked. After such a short period of time, Suyu had befriended several experts whose cultivations she couldn't see through. When Suyu first came here, he had to hide in the mysterious crystal mountains when he was being hunted by a deity. Suyu said, "Luzhu, I have decided to return to the Star River God Realm. I want to find the endless origin that I came here from. I hope you can lead the way for us." Hearing that, Luzhu's face changed drastically. "No. It is too dangerous there, and we must not go too deep. Once we are discovered by the 9-headed strange beast, we won't even be able to escape. Su Yu said, we have already mentally prepared ourselves. If we really encounter it, we can only fight to the death. But didn't you reach the depths of the endless origin safely? I think you should have a safe way to go, right? Lu Zhu said awkwardly, back then I also took a great risk. According to the route summarized by the clan over the years, I was lucky all the way. That route can only be said to be relatively safe, but not absolutely safe. Yongye Chushua said coldly, tell me, what exactly is the danger? Lu Zhu was a little afraid of her, and said pitifully, of course it is the nine-headed strange beast. It swims in this water all year round. Any living creature that enters this place, once discovered, has no chance of survival. Everyone in the Empire of Darkness knew about the rumors of the nine-headed strange beast. It was also a household name in the God Realm. This was the only restricted area in the God Realm, and even the emperors of the Empire dared not set foot in it. However, it does not swim all the time. According to the statistics of my clan over the years, it will fall into a deep sleep 3 days a month. This is the safest time. The day we met was the day it fell into a deep sleep. Lu Zhu revealed a key piece of information. Hearing that, everyone's eyes lit up. Then how many days until it falls into a deep sleep this month? Lu Zhu calculated and said, there are 7 or 8 days left. By then, it will be the safest time for us to go to the endless origin, provided that it is not awakened by external forces. Is that so? Although Su Yu was eager to return to the Star River, he also knew that haste makes waste. Okay, then wait patiently for 7 or 8 days, Su Yu said. What they did not know was that during the few days of waiting, a female figure was walking in the ruins of the endless origin. She looked relaxed, and there was a teasing and relaxed look on her face. Is this the end of the Lost Nation? I wonder if we can escape from the Lost Nation from here. 8 days later, according to Lu Zhu's calculations, this should be the time when the nine-headed strange god stopped swimming and fell into a deep sleep. Su Yu and the others immediately set off. Under the guidance of Lu Zhu, they chose a relatively safe path and crossed a large area of water. Finally, 2 days later, they successfully arrived at the place where they first met Su Yu. The water here was murky, and there were dark shadows everywhere, giving people a gloomy feeling. Feeling the great pressure, everyone's breathing became labored. What is that? Yongye Chushue's crystal eyes lit up. Suddenly, she saw deep ahead, in the turbulent water, a black shadow looming. Everyone fixed their eyes on it and secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. In the turbulent water, there was a giant black thing lying on its stomach. Its whole body was incomparably huge, comparable to a sacred sky warship. Its whole body was covered with metallic scales, and it looked like an artificially forged monster. However, the destructive power that was emitted from its body from time to time, as well as the aura that made people's souls tremble, all told them that it was an incomparably huge creature. In terms of size, it was not inferior to the giant of the Bitter Sea. What made Su Yu's heart palpitate was that its aura was even more suffocating than the giant of the Bitter Sea. The nine-headed strange god. Everyone's mind flashed with the terrifying existence of the legend at the same time. The forbidden creature that destroyed the allied forces of the 4 great empires and forced the 4 great empires to decline and perish overnight. Fortunately, as Lu Zhu had said, the nine-headed strange god had indeed fallen into a deep sleep. Otherwise, with the other party's powerful perception, there was no reason why it could not sense it at such a close distance. Su Yu transmitted his voice. In the depths of the turbulent water, go upstream, and that is where I want to go. All of you, follow me. He took the lead, concealed his aura, and carefully came to the place where the turbulent water was. As they got closer to the nine-headed strange god, they realized how terrifying it was. As they passed by its incomparably huge body, they felt like tiny ants. With a turn of its body, it could crush all of them to the ground. However, what was strange was that when Suyu passed by the nine-headed strange god, the space between his brows wriggled restlessly. It was the Tao Tai's eye. For some reason, it seemed to have sensed it and was wriggling instinctively in its deep sleep. That's strange, the Tao Tai's eye actually sensed the nine-headed strange god? Suyu thought to himself. After staring deeply at the nine-headed strange god for a few moments, Suyu led the group carefully through it. Looking up, one could see an incomparably long pillar of water descending from the sky. The higher they went, the stronger the water became. Suyu remembered that when it fell in the past, the power of the water was irresistible. Even though his divine power had improved greatly, he still felt extremely fearful when facing the water. Let's go. Suyu quietly went upstream against the current. The water pillar smashed onto his body like a heavy, giant mountain, and his whole body was in extreme pain. Suyu clenched his teeth and took the lead, slowly moving up against the water. At first, Suyu could still travel a few thousand feet with a step. However, the further he went, the more terrifying the water pillar became. It slowly shrank from 1,000 feet to 100 feet, and from 100 feet to half a foot. At this moment, it was as if he was walking normally, and every step was difficult. Brother Su, let us take turns. If this goes on, you won't be able to take it. Yongye Chushue followed closely behind Suyu. Suddenly, a drop of warm liquid fell on the tip of her nose. She thought it was the water pillar splashing onto her body, but when she realized the temperature of the liquid, she realized that something was wrong. She looked up and saw that Suyu's arms were bleeding profusely. The blood was dripping down his arms and staining the water pillar red. Suyu clenched his teeth. This small injury is nothing. When we can't take another step forward, it will be time to use the replica of the World Annihilation Plate. He had already gone through this in his mind countless times. It was impossible to pass through the countercurrent with brute force alone. Otherwise, this nine-headed strange god could charge into the Star River God realm with its own strength. Why would it hide here? The reason was that it couldn't pass through this countercurrent. The only way was to use a powerful force to push the countercurrent back. During the gap created, they would immediately rush out. Slowly, the water pillar became stronger and stronger, and they were almost washed down several times. If they went any further, they would not be able to take another step forward. Yongye Wuheng was extremely shocked. Even the emperor of the empire will be washed down, let alone us. Yongye Chushue and the others finally felt the pressure of the water pillar. They clenched their teeth and persevered. Reaching this point was the limit of the 5 of them. Looking at the dark passage under their feet and the blurry black shadow of the nine-headed strange god, Suyu gritted his teeth and took out a snow-white round plate the size of a palm from his sleeve. This was to prevent the World Annihilation Plate from shrinking like the Cavern World. Chapter 1480. Whoosh! Endless columns of water poured down on the snow-white perfect World Annihilation Plate. Under the enormous pressure, the replica World Annihilation Plate trembled and made a rumbling sound. They couldn't stay here for too long. Otherwise, the more water accumulated on it, the more pressure the World Annihilation Plate would have to bear. In the end, it might not be able to break through the accumulated water. World Annihilation Cannon, activate. Suyu ordered. Inside the World Annihilation Plate, the people who were already prepared immediately went to work and mobilized all the World Annihilation Cannons. Buzz, buzz. Waves of majestic energy gathered in the World Annihilation Cannon, brewing a terrible power. Yongye Chushue and the others were looking forward to it. They had long been curious about the Star River God realm that Suyu had described. What was the shape of that God realm? 10 breaths. 9 breaths. 8 breaths. The World Annihilation Plate started counting down. 10 breaths would be enough to gather all the energy of this destructive attack on the red ball in the middle. Then, it would explode from the red ball. At that time, the power produced would be indescribable. The weakest level would be no less than the canon of law of the sacred sky warship. 1 breath. Buzz. Buzz. After the energy had been gathered, the hundreds of world annihilation cannons vibrated violently. It was time to break through the countercurrent. However, at the last moment, Suyu gave an order indifferently, target, 30 degrees to the bottom left. Wait. Yongye Chushue and the others were stunned. Weren't they going to break through the countercurrent above? What was that 30 degrees to the bottom left? They fell into great confusion and confusion. Only Bai Wanqing immediately pinched her fingers. At the same time, her purple eyes shone brightly. Then, her pretty face changed dramatically. How could it be? I saw a redwood woman? What? The other three immediately looked in that direction. Vaguely, a dreamy redwood woman really did appear in the originally empty area. The endless water bombarded her body, but it was easily repelled, not suppressing her at all. At this moment, there was a woman hiding nearby. Not to mention them, any emperor of the empire would have broken out in a cold sweat. Someone was hiding nearby without a sound, but he was completely unaware of it. Especially since it was such a dangerous and unfathomable place, it was extremely strange. However, what was even stranger was that when they saw the woman's face clearly, they were all stunned. The one who was the most shocked was the saint. Her eyes widened and she said in disbelief, Kai. Sister Kai Lin? Aren't you in the forbidden land of 10,000 demons? Why are you here? The others also fell into endless confusion and shock. When Suyu left, he only took the 4 of them with him. How could Kaylin be here in advance? Moreover, at this moment, Kaylin's entire body was indescribably weird. Compared with her usual quietness, the faint smile hanging on the corner of Kaylin's mouth was completely unlike her. Kaylin smiled indifferently and said, I'm also a member of the god realm of the Star River. Is there a problem with me going back? The saintess was speechless and didn't know where to start. The others were also shocked by this strange scene and were somewhat at a loss as to what to do. Only Su Yu's eyes were filled with deep fear. It's okay for Kaylin to go back, but it's really hard for me to rest assured if you go back with us. Huh. Everyone's pupils shrank slightly. If she wasn't Kaylin, then who was she? Kaylin said sweetly, Su Yu, do you still hate me for doing evil for the demon realm in the past? Now that I'm on the front line of the heart-cleansing revolution with you, is it really okay for you to treat me like this? Su Yu said lightly, I don't remember standing on the front line with you, Red Dust Maiden. What? Everyone was shocked. Especially the saintess, whose face was full of horror and surprise. Yongye Wuheng and the others might not know Red Dust Maiden, but how could the saintess not know? In the forbidden land of red dust, there was a very mysterious woman. The saintess said, Brother Su, you must be mistaken. When did Kaylin become Red Dust Maiden? Su Yu's eyes were firmly fixed on Kaylin, and he said in a deep voice, a long time ago. If my speculation is correct, it should be that when you, Kaylin, and Zheng Lin fell into the dream and couldn't extricate themselves, she controlled Kaylin. Now, Kaylin should still be trapped in some kind of dream, and her body is controlled by red dust through the dream. Hearing such a response, the saintess was stunned. Others might not believe it, but she had to believe it, because before she left the dream, Red Dust Maiden did appear and made an agreement with her. That Kaylin was controlled by Red Dust Maiden was not groundless. Giggle. Suddenly, Kaylin covered her red lips and giggled. What an interesting guy. I thought you were just a little smarter than ordinary people, but I didn't expect to underestimate you. Well, yes, I am Red Dust Maiden. As her voice fell, her body's surface emitted bursts of pink mist, like a dream. The power of red dust! The saintess exclaimed. She was indeed Red Dust Maiden. How did you know? I thought you hid it well, Red Dust Maiden said with a smile. Su Yu said lightly, you did hide it well, and you also got Kaylin's memory. There are not many flaws. The only flaw is that you only got the memory, but you didn't get the feelings she should have. Why do you say that? Red Dust Maiden said. Su Yu said, Do you remember what kind of expression you had when the demonic god of six paths was captured? There was no expression. Everyone listened quietly. Now that they thought about it carefully, Kaylin seemed to be hidden in the crowd at that time, and they didn't notice her. They didn't expect Su Yu to be so observant that he caught her expression. If the real Kaylin faced the most powerful demonic god of the past, she would either be sad about his experience or relieved and no longer worry about this disaster. She would never be expressionless. Su Yu said, "I was just surprised at that time. Your performance was a little too strange. Until we decided to return to the Star River God Realm, you didn't say anything." Su Yu shook his head. This was too strange for Kaylin. After all, she came from the Star River God Realm, and she certainly had the thought of going home. At that time, I suspected that you might not be just a little strange, but that you were possessed. Su Yu said, "I had observed you secretly, but unfortunately, I couldn't see any traces of you being possessed. I have been wondering if I guessed wrong. Until an old friend of mine appeared in my wife's dream, and I suddenly realized that occupying a person's body doesn't necessarily require soul possession. There is another way for a certain special existence, and that is dreams. The ability to control a person's body through dreams has only been recorded by one person in history, and that is the mysterious woman in the Red Dust Forbidden Land, Red Dust Maiden." Hearing this, everyone suddenly understood, and for a moment, they couldn't help but be alert. They had been with Red Dust Maiden for several years without knowing it. Red Dust Maiden said sweetly, "So, even though you knew I was Red Dust Maiden, you didn't dare to reveal my identity, in case I did something unfavorable?" Su Yu nodded and said, "I thought you would restrain yourself if I kept you under the eyes of the epic-making dragon. I didn't expect that your ultimate goal was to follow us into the Star River God Realm." Red Dust Maiden smiled and asked, "You mean, the other end of this passage is actually the Star River God Realm? A part of the ancient God Realm of 9 dragons?" Su Yu frowned slightly. It seemed that Red Dust Maiden didn't know what the other end of the Endless Origin was. After thinking about it, Su Yu said, "Yes, if my inference is correct, after the ancient God Realm of 9 dragons was destroyed, it should have fallen into the Lost Nation, causing a part of the God Realm to fall into the Lost Nation and become the Lost God Realm. The other part, outside the Lost Nation, became the Star River God Realm." This was the inference that Su Yu had pondered over for many years, and there was no record of it in any history. Red Dust Maiden nodded and confirmed Su Yu's guess. "You are very smart, and your guess is very close to the truth. A part of the ancient God Realm of 9 dragons did fall into the Lost Nation because of an accident. However, you are wrong about one thing. The Lost Nation is not an object, but a living creature." "What?" Such a horrifying explanation was like a clap of thunder to their ears. The Lost Nation, which they had lived and multiplied for hundreds of millions of years, was actually a living creature? Su Yu vaguely remembered that the evil god had once said that after the ancient God Realm of 9 dragons was destroyed, an incomparably huge black shadow swept across the sky of the God Realm. Then, a part of the God Realm disappeared. It was that creature that swallowed this part of the celestial territory. Originally, it had planned to swallow the entire celestial territory. Unfortunately, it seems that some kind of unexpected change happened. Before it could swallow the other part, it died. Red Dust Maiden looked at the deepest part of the falling water column, and said slowly, "That gap is where it swallowed the God Realm." The Holy Maiden asked curiously, "Is that the mouth? Could this passageway be its neck?" Red Dust Maiden looked at her meaningfully and said with a chuckle, "We don't know. Such a huge living creature has long gone beyond the scope of the Great Path rules. Only God knows what it is. Its body structure is different from ordinary living creatures. It couldn't be more ordinary." They listened attentively, and Su Yu was also enlightened. He had learned many secrets that he had never known before. However, he did not let his guard down. He said lightly, you've said so much. Don't tell me you want us to take you to the Star River God realm? The 100-world devastation cannons seemed to have received an order. Beams of destructive light flickered, ready to explode at any time. However, Red Dust Maiden shook her head. I thought it would be the outside world, but it turned out to be a fallen world worse than the Lost Nation. I can't be bothered to go. I'm talking to you to let you know that I'm actually not as bad as you think I am. Look, that stupid dragon hides everything and doesn't tell you anything. How good am I? I answer every question. So, I think we can actually be friends, Red Dust Maiden said with a smile. Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. He had asked the epic-making dragon about the Lost Nation, and she had told Su Yu that she would not answer him unless he had mastered it. Only the two of them knew about this, and Red Dust Maiden was able to find out. Chapter 1481. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. As expected, he had long felt that the epic-making dragon was hiding something for giving him this item so easily. Su Yu said, "Then can you tell me why the Lost Nation has imprisoned so many powerful beings?" Mistress Hong Chen smiled charmingly. That stupid dragon was right about one thing. Telling you won't help. At least knowing it now will do you more harm than good. However, what I can tell you is that the Lost Nation is about to open. The 3 great Forbidden Lands are getting restless, including the Auntie in the Azura Forbidden Lands and that stupid dragon. They are all planning something. In addition, the sinful lady who was suppressed 1 billion years ago seems to be coming out soon. In short, the Lost Nation will soon be in great trouble. You have to be careful. After saying that, Mistress Hong Chen slowly flew down and said with a smile, "That's all I have to say. Good luck." Everyone stared at her disappearing figure warily. Where was the outside world that Mistress Hong Chen mentioned? Did she believe Su Yu's words so easily and not go to the Star River God realm to take a look? Under everyone's stare, she returned to the bottom of the water with a smile. Just as she was about to leave, suddenly, something strange happened. The sleeping 9-headed god had opened 9 pairs of ferocious blood-red eyes. Mistress Hong Chen was oblivious to it and landed near him. When she sensed the ferocious breath behind her, she looked back and shrugged helplessly. "What bad luck, I'm done for." "Good luck," as his voice drifted through the air, a huge ferocious head swallowed him in one gulp. The sudden scene shocked them to the point that their expressions changed drastically. Didn't the 9-headed god sleep for 3 days? Why did it wake up without any warning in just 2 days? Before he could reprimand Luzhu, Su Yu's expression changed drastically. He shouted, "Turn around and shoot through the water, quick!" Rumble. Hundreds of world devastation cannons gathered their energy into the red bead in the middle. The 9-headed god at the bottom of the water sensed their presence. Its 9 heads stared up at them, its cold, merciless eyes locking onto them. Everyone stiffened. In front of such a terrifying creature, they felt like they were at the bottom of the food chain. It was as if the other party was at the top of the food chain, a high-level creature that was devouring them. Boom. At this moment, to prevent the world annihilation plate from unleashing its strongest attack, the red bead was filled with energy, and it erupted with an extreme red radiance. It suddenly pierced through the water above, and the endless flow of water was sent flying. The falling waterfall rolled back, forming a vacuum passage. "Let's go." In the blink of an eye, Su Yu put away the world annihilation plate and immediately displayed the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole. He enveloped everyone in the reversed yin and yang energy and teleported them hundreds of millions of miles away in an instant. In the blink of an eye, they had traversed more than half of the passageway. They had even caught up to the speed of the energy beam and were following closely behind it. From where they stood, they could already see the gap above their head. A world of clear starlight appeared in front of them, sprinkling the dazzling starlight that the Lost Nation had never seen before. Yongye Chushue and the others were stunned, confused and curious. Was that the god realm of the Star River, an ancient family of the god realm full of stars? As Suyu sensed the aura that he hadn't felt for a long time, his heart was filled with emotion. In his mind, the scene of Xia Jingyu waving at him appeared. He was back. After 7 years, he had finally returned to the Star River deity realm. However, at this moment, a violent force suddenly locked onto them. Looking down, everyone was shocked. The 9-headed yes-god had followed them. It was less than 10 million feet away from them. "Let's get out." Suyu was shocked. He immediately led everyone and rushed towards the last passage. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Like a dream, the 5 of them left behind blurry shadows that stretched for millions of feet as they rushed towards the gap. However, the 9-headed yes-god was faster than them and rapidly shortened the distance between them. Their ferocious bloody eyes and terrifying heads looked as if they were going to devour all 5 of them. At this moment, the energy beam pierced through the passage and left the heaven pool. After a short period of drying up, the heaven pool was once again filled with endless Star River water. The massive amount of Star River water poured into the passage again. Suyu's expression changed slightly. The passage was longer than expected. If they didn't rush out now, they would definitely be pushed back by the water. "Last chance, rush out!" Suyu roared. Sky-splitting yin-yang style. A huge yin-yang pattern appeared above their head. After the endless water entered it, it was transferred out from the other side. However, this was only a temporary measure. After 10 consecutive transfers, the Tai Chi pattern could no longer withstand the crushing force of the torrent and shattered. Seeing that they were about to be washed out, Suyu shouted, "6 Dao Tianluan." 6 blood-red eyes appeared behind him and shot out 6 pitch-black beams of light, blasting the pouring water into nothingness. However, how much water was there in the Star River? It was endless. After they rushed out 10,000 feet, endless Star River water fell again. Suyu's expression changed drastically as he shouted in a low voice, "Boundless fighting will." The majestic fighting will condensed into a peerless divine weapon and broke through the countercurrent. The more it was suppressed, the stronger the fighting will became. In the end, the fighting will was so terrifying that it shattered the space, and countless streams of water were sucked into the void. However, the Star River water was too vast. In the end, the fighting will divine weapon could only resist the impact of the water and could not advance any further. Suyu gritted his teeth and shouted, 6,000 divine paths. In the past 5 years, he had comprehended a lot of the divine paths in the tomb of all deities and reached the level of 6,000 divine paths. Suddenly, the 6,000 divine legacies, which were 10,000 feet tall, forcibly pushed the majestic water up 10,000 feet high. Suyu and the others were able to advance another 10,000 feet. However, they were still 10,000 feet away from the gap, and there was no way forward at all. They watched as the water slapped down and washed all of them down. At this time, Yongye Chushue, Yongye Wuheng, Luo Shui, and Bai Wanqing also erupted with unprecedented strength. The magical powers of the 3 great epic-making dragons and the sorcery passed down by the Moonwatch sect leader merged into a peerless power, violently bombarding the water and blasting it back 5,000 feet. Suyu and the others took advantage of the situation to move forward again. However, they had to stop here. They had no time to open the last 5,000 feet. Was this the end? Suyu's eyes were filled with reluctance, but his body was covered with blood and exhausted. He had no more strength to break through the last 5,000 feet. Below him were the 9 heavenly gods. Once they fell in, they would die without a burial place. At this moment, a long, thick branch suddenly flew down from the gap above. The branch wrapped around Suyu and the others, then quickly pulled them out of the passage against the current. Bang! They were thrown out of the water like fish that had been hooked. The moment they jumped out of the water, the huge lake was finally filled with the majestic water of the Star River. They could vaguely hear the roars of the 9 heavenly gods being smashed down from the passage. Suyu was in midair, breathing in the air that he had not breathed in for a long time. He could not calm down. It was as if a pair of wings had grown on his back, and he could not wait to fly to find Xiaojingyu. Until a familiar teasing voice fell into his ears. Sigh, after 7 years of fishing, I didn't expect to catch a few living creatures. Everyone turned around and saw a towering tree. It was bronze in color, and its branches were luxuriant and lush. It was the branches of the giant tree that had entangled them, allowing them to escape the disaster. As the saying goes, a drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. Today I have saved you, but I don't want 100 lives. Just pay with your bodies. Women, warm my bed. Men, warm my feet. Yongye Chushur blushed and said softly, "Is this the tree goddess? How obscene." Luo Xue's expression was also slightly unnatural. He widened his eyes and stared at the book goddess angrily. Yongye Wuheng was a little speechless. This tree was so strange. Could it be the tree goddess who had gone crazy from her cultivation? Only Bai Wanqing was startled. She murmured, "It has been 7 years. Things remain the same, but people have changed. Only she is still waiting here." "Humph, whoever disobeys me, I will sell you immediately. I am very short of money recently," the tree goddess said arrogantly. Rustle. The sound of falling leaves fluttering gently rang out above the tree goddess's head. It was Suyu who flew over and approached the crown of the tree. He was moved beyond words. "Thank you, tree goddess. 7 years ago, he was accidentally swept into the Star River. 7 years later, she was still waiting by the lake. How could Suyu not understand this feeling? He could even feel that the tree goddess was so excited at this moment that she needed to use absurd words to cover up her feelings. She wanted to cover up her current self with her past attitude. However, could that be covered up? 7 years of waiting without complaint or regret. When everyone had left and everyone thought that Suyu could not be saved, she was the only one who was still waiting silently. Although the world was big, who would be willing to wait quietly in the cold wind and rain, in the silent time, under the faint hope of waiting quietly for 7 years? Apart from Xiaojingyu and Xiener, who else would do it? Only the tree goddess, who only cared about money, was the one who waited for Suyu the most. The ancient tongue tree trembled slightly. The huge crown of the tree could not help but rustle, and leaves fell one after another. It was covered with dust and was full of traces of wind, frost, rain, and snow. It was also full of a woman's hidden sadness. The emotional fluctuations made the tree goddess unable to maintain her form. The green light spread and condensed into a human figure. It was a noble and elegant young girl in a green robe, slim and graceful. Her elegant temperament and slender body gave people a natural sense of beauty. Yongye Chushue and the others were dumbfounded. They could not associate the woman in front of them with the tree goddess who was full of vulgar words. At this moment, the tree goddess lowered her head and did not look at Suyu. However, her slightly trembling body showed that she was very excited. "I am back," Suyu said softly. The tree goddess still did not look up, but in front of her heels, drops of moisture fell one after another. With a sobbing voice, she whispered, "Who knows you?" Suyu smiled slightly, gently held her in his arms, and whispered in her ear, "Thank you." The tree goddess was stiff as if she had been electrocuted. Her beautiful eyes widened in disbelief, and she trembled and said, You, what are you doing?" Chapter 1482. The sudden hug turned the tree goddess, who was usually careless, into a little girl who had her first awakening of love. She was at a loss of what to do. 7 years and a hug. It was a luxury for her, but for Suyu it was just an action. After letting go of the tree goddess, her face turned red. She wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Suyu said, "Without you, we couldn't have come back." If she hadn't waited for 7 years, who would have pulled them up at the last moment? Suyu quietly accepted the heaviness of waiting. That hug was a promise to him. Yongye Chushue and Luo Xue were both jealous and envious. Could this tree goddess be Suyu's woman? However, she didn't look like she was. The two women, who had never liked each other, couldn't help but look at each other. They had a tacit understanding. In Su Yu's hometown, the number of rivals in love was unknown, so they had to cooperate with each other. After a long time, the tree goddess recovered from the unexpected hug and said with a sullen face, You bastard! You took advantage of me as soon as you came back. I don't want to live anymore. Having said that, only she knew the sweetness in her heart. When Su Yu was about to say something, he suddenly frowned and looked at the Tianhu. The lake had returned to its usual calmness, and there was nothing unusual. However, his intuition was always sharp, so he said, Everyone, step back. Something is wrong. Everyone was surprised, but they obeyed Su Yu's order and moved away from the Tianhu. They stared at the Tianhu without blinking. However, after a long time, nothing happened. The tree goddess patted her chest and said bitterly, You don't have to scare me like this. I've been frightened today. First, Su Yu came back alive, and then he gave her a hug, which made the tree goddess extremely nervous. However, as soon as she finished speaking, a huge bubble suddenly appeared on the Tianhu. The tree goddess was stunned, and then she said seriously, Something is wrong. I have been by the lake for 7 years, and I have never seen a bubble. There is something in the lake. Bang! Before she finished speaking, a large wave suddenly appeared on the surface of the lake. A tyrannical and peerless aura rose to the sky. Pound! Then, a loud noise that shook the Star River suddenly broke out. A gigantic pitch-black claw that was over 1,000,000 feet in length reached out from the bottom of the lake, gripping tightly onto the shore of the lake. Following that, as more and more bubbles appeared, 9 gigantic heads emerged from the water. The splash it created was tens of millions of feet high. The river of stars that flowed to the heavenly lake even flowed in reverse, creating ripples and waves that stretched for billions of miles. Roar! The 9 heads let out a fierce roar that pierced through the galaxy, the demonic world, the former Great Western Alliance, and the deepest part of the Great Eastern Alliance. The tree goddess was dumbfounded. What is this? That terrifying aura made her feel the suppression of her rank. It was as if she was at the bottom of the food chain in front of it. Pound! The other claw of the 9-headed god hooked onto the side of the lake. Its gigantic body was even larger than the lake. He struggled to get out of the lake. Su Yu and the others were overwhelmed with shock. If this 9-headed god broke into the galaxy god realm, what would happen? All the creatures in the entire galaxy god realm wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Take advantage of the fact that it hasn't come out yet, Su Yu said, taking the lead and activating the sky-splitting yin-yang style. As soon as the style was displayed, the water of the Star River in the distance was transmitted through the Tai Chi pattern and poured into the lake. The powerful water flow caused the 9-headed god's body to sink slightly. However, it used its claws to stabilize itself and climbed out against the current. Yongye Wuheng saw this and immediately attacked. Flying dragon in the sky. The rest of the people didn't dare to let this terrifying monster climb up and attacked one after another. Dragon Emperor's heavenly voice. 1,000 years of dream. Soul-destroying lifeless curse. The 5 of them worked together and erupted with unparalleled combat power, stirring up the Star River endlessly. The huge pressure made the tree goddess suffocate. She was inexplicably shocked. How could the group of people that Su Yu brought back be so powerful? However, the scales of the 9-headed god were terrifyingly strong. The magical powers of the 3 great dragons bombarded its body and countless sparks burst out. What was even more strange was that a small part of its power was inexplicably devoured. Roar! The 9-headed god let out another deafening roar. This time, the roar contained great divine power. Yongye Wuheng and the other 3 trembled violently. Their magical powers were forcefully interrupted, and they suffered a backlash, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. Without hesitation, Su Yu summoned the replica of the World Annihilation Plate. World Annihilation Cannon, activate. 10 breaths. 9 breaths. 8 breaths. The World Annihilation Plate entered the countdown to attack. Taking advantage of the gap, Su Yu waved one hand and took out the Sacred Sky ship, firing the Superior Extermination Cannon. The power of the Superior Extermination Cannon was slightly inferior to the World Annihilation Cannon, but its advantage was that it could charge up extremely quickly. In just 3 breaths, the 100 Superior Extermination Cannons were fully charged and fired. With a loud bang that shook the heavens and earth, the 9-headed god stuck in the lake was hit hard. However, the shocking thing was that its pitch-black scales bounced off most of the energy. Its body only sank a little, but it didn't suffer any substantial damage. Everyone was shocked. Even a level 1 deity might not be able to withstand the combined power of the 100 Superior Extermination Cannons. This 9-headed god was too terrifying. Fortunately, the World Annihilation Plate was ready. It immediately gathered all the energy on the red bead and unleashed an earth-shattering attack. Back then, the aftermath of this attack had pierced through the giant of the Bitter Sea, who was a level 1 deity. Now that it was an all-out attack, the 9-headed god would be killed no matter how hard its scales were. As expected, as if it felt threatened, the 9-headed god struggled even more violently and roared continuously. The roars shook the galaxy. Even the World Annihilation Plate was shaking under the roars. The more it was like this, the stronger Su Yu's killing intent became. He must not be allowed to come up. Fire! With a command, the red beam of light suddenly shot out. With this shot, the 9-headed god was stuck in the lake. There was nowhere to retreat or hide. They would definitely die. However, an unimaginable scene appeared. The 9 heads of the 9-headed god actually combined into one at the critical moment. A hideous head that Su Yu was extremely familiar with appeared in front of him. It was a twisted, ferocious, greedy, and cruel face. A pair of eyes that were as black as ink shone with a greedy light. It was as if it wanted to devour everything in the world. The pair of eyes stared at Su Yu, and the greed in them intensified. It was as if Su Yu was exuding an irresistible temptation. And between Su Yu's eyebrows, the Tao Tai's eye that was embedded in it felt a strong reaction. It suddenly woke up from its slumber and opened its eyes abruptly. Su Yu's face changed drastically. He said in a serious voice, "Tao Tai." That gigantic head was none other than the Tao Tai. The legendary 9-headed god turned out to be a living Tao Tai. Such a shocking fact caught Su Yu off guard. Then, Yongye Wuheng and the others recognized the origin of this beast and were extremely shocked. The greedy beast that devours the heavens and spits out the earth, Tao Tai? Everyone felt as if their chests were blocked by something, and they couldn't even breathe. According to the legends, it was a ferocious beast that had an endless lifespan and could devour everything. Buzz. The red beam of light suddenly shot out. However, the Tao Tai's eyes emitted a jet-black light, forming a pair of black vortexes, which swallowed up the destructive power completely. Everyone was shocked. Such a powerful blow was swallowed up just like that? The 9-headed strange beast, no, it was the Tao Tai. Its eyes revealed anthropomorphic cruelty and greed as it stared at Su Yu. A shocking suction force engulfed Su Yu and was about to devour him. Su Yu remembered that Yun Yazi once said that Tao Tais loved to devour each other. If he met a Tao Tai one day, he would definitely be chased by it endlessly. Now, his words came true, and he really met a Tao Tai. Being wrapped up by this force, Su Yu's divine power was sealed, and he couldn't resist. Seeing that he was about to be swallowed, Yongye Wuheng and the others launched attacks, but all their moves were swallowed up, and they couldn't do anything to this Tao Tai. At this critical moment, Su Yu had an idea and took out a snow-white piece of paper. It was a letter with the 9 dragon ancient deities' heaven book. Su Yu threw it and covered the Tao Tai's eyes. This pair of eyes, which could swallow everything, couldn't swallow a small piece of paper, and its eyes were really covered. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Su Yu successfully got rid of it and retreated frantically. Roar. It seemed that the Tao Tai didn't expect that its eyes would be blocked. It grabbed the letter angrily and stared at Su Yu again. Another wave of sucking force erupted, wrapping around Su Yu. Su Yu snorted coldly, and the Tao Tai's eye between his eyebrows suddenly rotated, bursting out with a powerful sucking force. The two waves of sucking force collided in the air, forming a huge, pitch-black vortex, swallowing everything around it. The endless water of the Star River was swallowed, and disappeared without a trace. Oh no, let's go! Yongye Wuheng saw that the situation was not good, and he shouted loudly, leading everyone to retreat hundreds of millions of miles. Even though they could see the situation there, the terrible sucking vortex was still there. The two Tao Tai's eyes crossed countless spaces and met here. Su Yu finally understood why this nine-headed god would suddenly awaken. It wasn't that Luju's calculation and experience were wrong, but when he passed by the nine-headed god, the Tao Tai's eyes sensed each other. Now that the Tao Tai's eyes collided, Su Yu's sucking force was obviously not as good as the real Tao Tai's. The black vortex kept moving towards Su Yu, trying to swallow him up. Seeing that the situation was getting more and more dangerous, Su Yu suddenly felt something warm in his sleeve. A ring flew out on its own. It was a gift from Wuxin to Su Yu before they parted. It was an ancestral treasure received from a martial artist, and it was said to be a weapon of civilization. However, as members of the royal family, the Yongye siblings had never seen it before. At this moment, the ring flew out on its own. The surface of the ancient ring cracked on its own, and the bronze rust on its surface peeled off, revealing the true appearance under the bronze. It turned out to be a jade bracelet. As soon as the bracelet appeared, the Tao Tai showed a look of fear. It retracted its gaze and immediately dived into the lake. This scene surprised Su Yu. He closed the Tao Tai's eyes and looked at the jade bracelet. He found that there was nothing special about the bracelet. Apart from the halo that it emitted and the weak defensive power, there was nothing special about it. Chapter 1483. While Su Yu was still in disbelief, the jade bracelet flew out on its own and swept toward the Tao Tai. Seeing this, the Tao Tai was terrified to the extreme, and even let out a terrified roar. This did not stop the jade bracelet from flying towards him. A scene that shocked Su Yu appeared. The jade bracelet continued to expand until it was 10 million zhang tall. Then, she put it on Taoya's body. Immediately after, the jade bracelet continued to shrink. The Tao Tai also involuntarily shrank along with the jade bracelet. In the end, it was only the size of a palm. The incomparably huge Tao Tai was forcefully suppressed until it became incomparably small. Not only that, but his strength was also suppressed by the jade bracelet. At this moment, he was completely harmless. Su Yu was shocked. Where did this jade bracelet come from? Weapons of civilization? Even civilization weapons are not this powerful. The Tao Tai fluttered on the ground in horror, clumsy and ridiculous, still unable to connect it with the incomparably ferocious giant beast from before. He carefully probed a bit to make sure that Tao Tai was no longer in danger. Only then did Su Yu pick it up. Yes, he picked it up. After being picked up by Su Yu, the Tao Tai struggled even more fearfully. However, it was firmly confined by the jade bracelet, and it couldn't escape Su Yu's palm at all. Su Yu had an urge to laugh. Is this really not a dream? He carefully thought about when he saw Wuxin again, and the fate that had been touched in the unseen world. Wuxin would surely lose her life because of Su Yu, and that was her fate. In the end, Su Yu unexpectedly sensed the direction of fate and refused to accompany her, avoiding the terrifying danger of the Tao Tai. Her fate had changed, so Wuxin had to settle for the next best thing. She gave this ring to Su Yu as compensation. Now that he thought about it, it seemed as if everything had been arranged beforehand. If not for Yongye Chushue's request to return to the imperial capital, would they have met Wuxin? If she hadn't rejected Wuxin's following, would she have given him the bracelet? If it wasn't for the ring, How could the great danger today be resolved so easily? The answer was no. Su Yu's original fate was to suffer endless dangers and die in the eyes of the Tao Tai. In the end, his fate changed again and again, leading him to the other extreme. Not only did he not die, even the Tao Tai had fallen into his hands. Two changes in fate, one was extremely inauspicious, and the other was extremely auspicious. Did the changes occur naturally, or were they caused by external forces? There was a mysterious being who had wanted to kill Su Yu for a long time. He had no doubt that the fate of Su Yu's great calamity might have been arranged by him. What was most suspicious was how the 9 ES gods charged out of the lake. He had clearly heard the sound of the 9 ES gods being smashed into the bottom of the lake. How did they come up? It was absolutely impossible for it to crawl out of the passageway by itself. Otherwise, it would have crawled to the god realm of the Star River countless times over the years. Su Yu would never believe that there was no invisible existence helping him in the dark. I dodged another calamity, Su Yu thought to himself. The problem was that the fate of great calamities was arranged by those mysterious beings. Then, who was the one who changed fate? While Su Yu was thinking, Tao Tai suddenly vomited, spitting out a pool of liquid. Within the liquid was a tiny person that was difficult to see with the naked eye. Shockingly, it was none other than Mistress Red Dust. Before she could be digested, she was shrunk together with Tao Tai. Su Yu took it aside so that she wouldn't be affected by the jade bracelet. Then, she gradually enlarged and returned to her original body. She was still under Mistress Red Dust's control. Shaking off the filth that covered her, she grumbled, "Why didn't you save me earlier?" The corner of Su Yu's mouth twitched. "You reacted very calmly. This bracelet of yours seems very special. I think I've seen it somewhere before." Mistress Red Dust looked at the shrunken Tao Tai without fear. Her attention was focused on the jade pendant that bound it, and she blinked curiously. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. She had seen it before? "But I can't remember," Mistress Red Dust said again. The blue veins on Su Yu's forehead throbbed. Mistress Red Dust was only slightly curious. She was no longer interested in the jade pendant, as if it was nothing in her eyes. She looked around and smiled. "This is the god realm of the Star River? It's far worse than the lost god realm. There isn't even a single expert here. There's a demon who is trying to become a middle god. It seems to be the descendant of the Demon Sword Emperor," Mistress Red Dust said lightly. "The Demon Sword Emperor?" Su Yu was shocked again. The 9 Suns Cosmos sword formation that he cultivated was the essence of the Demon Sword Emperor. The demon turned out to be the descendant of the Demon Sword Emperor. This greatly exceeded Su Yu's expectations. If he remembered correctly, there was also a Demon Sword Sovereign sect in the Lost God realm. However, it was eaten by Tao Tai during the last exploration of the Endless Origin. Then, it was replaced by another Imperial Sacred sect. Then, it gradually declined and disappeared in the long river of history. Who would have thought that the demon race was actually the descendant of the Demon Sword Sovereign? No wonder the Demon Imperial family had inherited the 9 Suns Cosmos sword formation. Unfortunately, the first Demon Emperor took the wrong path and cultivated the curse of reincarnation of 10,000 demons instead of inheriting the essence of the Demon Sword Emperor. Mistress Red Dust didn't seem very interested. Instead, she looked deeper into the starry river and shook her head. "There aren't any powerful experts to speak of," she said. "Just a descendant of the Devil's Word Emperor. I guess I'd better head back." As he spoke, Mistress Red Dust seemed to sense someone. She turned her head and looked into the depths of the Great Eastern Alliance, her calm eyes filled with shock. Gasp! It was that lord. Why would he be in the tiny Star River God realm? Also, isn't the one playing chess with him one of the 9 emperors who has already died and whose remains have gone missing? Puff! Suddenly, Mistress Red Dust seemed to have suffered some kind of attack. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, blocking the words she was about to say. Her face turned pale instantly, and she hurriedly bowed in the direction of the Great Eastern Alliance. "I was rude, I will leave immediately." After saying that, she plunged into the heavenly lake without looking back. Suyu was left alone, extremely shocked. She didn't even take Tao Tai seriously and treated him indifferently. Who did she see just now? Who was the one who injured him? Especially that look of fear at the end, it was by no means fake. Suyu was shocked. The desolate Star River of the past had become extremely mysterious in his eyes at this moment. There were still powerful people hidden in the Star River? Taking a few deep breaths, Suyu put away his contempt and became extremely vigilant. What kind of people were hiding in the tiny Star River god realm? Who was that lord? Also, she said that one of the 9 emperors was playing chess. Didn't the 9 emperors turn into ashes in the battle with the sinful lady? Why was there still one of them alive? His heart was in great turmoil. Swish, swish, swish. Yongye Wuheng and the others, who noticed the weak breath of the vortex, quickly rushed back. When they saw the jade pendant in Su Yu's palm and the Tao Tai suppressed by the jade pendant, their eyelids twitched violently and they were horrified. Tao Tai was actually being suppressed? Swish. A slender palm grabbed over, and the tree goddess's eyes were full of golden light. Wow. It's a living Tao Tai, it must be very valuable. Su Yu rolled his eyes and put it into the 9 jade spiritual pearl. He said, "I can't give it to you. If it breaks free, I am not sure that the jade pendant will seal it again." This beast was too terrifying, and Su Yu would never dare to give it to an outsider. The crisis of Tao Tai was resolved, and Su Yu's heart finally flew to Xiaojingyu. He took out the Starry Sky Heavenly Book and handed it to Bai Wanqing. "Can you help me find it now?" Bai Wanqing nodded and stroked the Heavenly Book. Her purple pupils were constantly emitting bright purple light, as if she was looking for something. After a long time, she closed her eyes wearily and pointed in a direction. "The line of fate between you and her is there." Looking in the direction she pointed, Su Yu's eyes showed a strange expression. The direction of the Great Eastern Alliance? How was this possible? He had stayed in the Great Eastern Alliance for several years, and he had never heard the slightest news about Xiaojingyu. Was she trapped somewhere, or had she already fallen between heaven and earth? "Let's go." Su Yu did not stop for a moment. He immediately boarded the World Annihilation Plate and hurried on. At this moment, his heart was like a lamp in the wind, flickering and extinguishing, and he was very nervous. From the line of red dust to the line of fate, he finally found the trace of Xiaojingyu. After being separated for nearly 20 years, could they meet again? Under the pear blossoms and moonlight, was the beauty who followed him to comprehend the divine decree the same as before? A series of questions lingered in his heart. After they left for a long time, several deities arrived one after another. There were the closest demons, and there were also some deities scattered in the Xing River. People from the demon dimension came in a mighty manner. There were thousands of demons. Most of them were quasi-deities, and only a few were deities. They surrounded a queen and slowly came nearby. If Su Yu was here, he would definitely recognize her. She was the queen of the demon dimension, Princess Yunxia. Tianjizi's favorite person in the past, the concubine of the demon dimension's demon emperor, and the one who actually controlled the demon dimension. Her eyes were as sharp as ever. She glanced around and said, "After thousands of years, I see that terrible beam again. What is it? Why did it come from the bottom of the sky lake twice?" Next to her was her newly selected maid, who said, reporting to the princess, 7 years ago, Lord Six Paths fell into the sky lake and never came back. However, it was not until 5 years ago that the life tablet was broken. I wonder if there is another world under the sky lake? Princess Yunxia glanced at her lightly. A bunch of nonsense. The Xing River is the whole world. How can there be another world? The maid trembled in fear and did not dare to speak again. Princess Yunxia's eyes were cold, but her heart was calm. There is more than a world below. That is the most prosperous place in the ancient god realm. If Su Yu knew what she was thinking, he would be surprised. Since ancient times, apart from Su Yu and the others, no one had returned alive from the lost god realm. How did she know about the situation of the lost god realm below? Strengthen your realm and arrange patrols nearby, Princess Yunxia said. The most critical moment of the first demon emperor has arrived. He must not be disturbed by external forces. Many demon gods were secretly excited. After waiting for many years, the first demon emperor had finally cultivated to the top. Was he ready to devour all the creatures in the Xing River and use their power to break through the shackles of the lower gods and reach the realm of the higher gods? In the cheers, the demons retreated. What they did not know was that not far away, on a meteorite, an old man stood with his hands behind his back. His face was old, and his temperament was calm and gentle. His whole body emitted a faint Buddha's light. If someone who did not know better saw him, they would think that he was a Buddhist master. However, if Su Yu was here, he would definitely recognize that the old man was none other than the god of death, the terrible killer who established the Netherworld faction. He used to be the undead demon emperor of the demon dimension. Unwilling to be sacrificed to the giant of the bitter sea, he successfully escaped and established his own faction in the outside world. He became the strongest man second only to the demon emperor, the god of death. He stood on the meteorite and looked at the demons that were gradually disappearing. Only then did he come to the lakeside. His old eyes looked around and said softly, "You finally showed up. I wonder if you still remember the agreement with me that year." Before Su Yu destroyed the world of divine remains, he reached an agreement with this terrible god of death. Chapter 1484. In a flash, the god of death disappeared from the Xing River. At this moment, in the Xing River, a mass of yin and yang energy crossed countless stars with the momentum of penetrating heaven and earth. The wild beasts that were foraging in the Xing River looked up at the empty Xing River blankly, then lowered their heads and continued to look for food, as if nothing had happened. A few days later, Su Yu teleported to the vicinity of the former land of the gods. It was flattened by Su Yu that day, reduced to ruins, and all the evil creatures hiding in it were killed. Logically, this place should have become a land of death. Strangely, 3 cavern worlds were born in the ruins of the world, occupying this area. Su Yu frowned slightly. The land of the gods came back to life? Not far away, there were 10 huge battleships surrounding the 3 cavern worlds. The battleships had the unique logo of the Great Eastern Alliance. There was no doubt that they were sent by the Great Eastern Alliance to destroy the remnants of the land of the gods that had come back to life. What really caught Su Yu's attention were 2 of the battleships, which belonged to the all-access merchant god. Su Yu was surprised. "Is he here too?" After a little hesitation, Su Yu said, "Come with me to meet an old friend." Su Yu flashed and immediately appeared on one of the battleships of the all-access merchant god, descending directly into the most important room of the cabin. In his senses, there was a strong level 5 who was about to break through to the level 4 realm. In the Great Eastern Alliance, only the all-access merchant god and the Xing deity had such strength. However, what he saw was not the all-access merchant god, but a strange god that Su Yu had never seen before. "Who are you?" Su Yu asked. Did the Great Eastern Alliance and the Great Western Alliance have this god? The god was about 40 years old, surrounded by cold air, giving people a very uncomfortable feeling. He was practicing and did not guard against intruders. He said angrily, "Who are you? How dare you break into the fleet of the Divine Realm Empire?" The Divine Realm Empire? Su Yu was slightly surprised. Why are you so fierce? Answer me honestly. How could Luo Xue tolerate an inconspicuous little minion yelling at Su Yu? With a spell, he sealed him so that he could not move. The god's face changed dramatically as he realized that he had encountered a peerless expert. He said in horror, Who are you, seniors? Suyu was famous for a while, but not many people had seen him. It wasn't strange that he didn't know Suyu. Suyu asked, Who are you? Why haven't I seen you before? The god hurriedly replied, I'm Imu, the captain of the West Road Fleet. I've been ordered to come to the land of the gods to encircle and annihilate the rebels. The West Fleet. Suyu's eyes were filled with relief. I haven't been back for many years, and the Great Eastern Alliance has finally made some moves. Even the Galaxy Fleet is ready. Suyu asked again, Then, what is the Celestial Realm Empire that you mentioned? Imu stared at them as if they were monsters. It would be fine if they were weak beings, but why did seniors like them not know what was happening in the starry sky? Seeing Luoshue's unfriendly expression, Imu had an idea and said, Seniors, you might not know this, but 6 years ago, Lady Dakini persuaded the Western Alliance and the Eastern Alliance to merge with each other with her noble charm and peerless strength, forming the Divine Realm Alliance, the #1 force among the living beings in the universe. Bah! The tree goddess's eyebrows were almost raised, and her eyes were burning with anger. His noble personality, charisma, and strength had convinced the Great Western Alliance? Does she have any shame? It was clearly Suyu who unified the Western Alliance and became the Alliance Master of the Western Alliance. With his supreme majesty and strength, he managed to persuade the Western Alliance to merge with the Great Eastern Alliance to resist the demon world together. How did it become Dakini's credit now? Without Suyu seizing the position of the Alliance Master of the Western Alliance, it would have been difficult for the emissaries of the Great Eastern Alliance to even meet the Alliance Master, let alone the merger of the two great alliances. Didn't anyone tell you that it was Alliance Master Su who made this happen? Imu was obviously stunned and said, Alliance Master Su? Who is it? The tree goddess was so angry that she laughed, and her murderous intent was soaring. However, Suyu patted her on the shoulder and said lightly, It doesn't matter whose credit it is. She was able to accommodate the Western Alliance and establish a unified organization to resist the demon world, which is in line with my original intention. There is no need to argue about the credit. The tree goddess turned her head and stared at him with dissatisfaction. You are trying to piss me off. Suyu looked at Imu and said, Well, tell me, what about the rebel army in the world of divine remains? Imu said, They are all cruel and bloodthirsty people in the empire of the god realm, and they colluded with the demon race and leaked the whereabouts of our army, causing the death of many soldiers who were sent to fight against the demon world. Everyone has the right to punish them. Unfortunately, they are very powerful, relying on the ruins to defend and not attack. We can't do anything to them for a while. Suyu's eyes were cold. In the face of a great disaster, there were still traitors who colluded with the demon world. Are there people in all 3 cavern worlds? Suyu asked coldly. Imu's whole body trembled and he thought to himself, Where did this killing god come from? What a strong killing intent. I am about to break through to level 4, but in front of him, I feel like I will be crushed to death at any time. Swallowing his saliva, Imu said, Under our continuous attacks, they have all gathered in the middle cavern world and are resisting stubbornly. Suyu's eyes swept towards the most central cavern world, where the scent of the Great War remained. A group of people who deserve to be hacked to pieces, Suyu said coldly. He hated traitors the most in his life, especially those who had no bottom line in the face of great right and wrong. Betraying the intelligence of his own army and causing the death of the God Realm's army, even 100 deaths would not be enough to atone for their sins. Wait a moment, I will be back soon. Suyu flew out of the cabin alone. Imu said, Senior, I will send strong men to accompany you. Yongye Chushua said lightly, There is no need for that. Your so-called strong men will only add to his troubles. As soon as Suyu approached the middle cavern world, he immediately blasted out a beam of fusion energy. The power was not weak, comparable to a full blow from a level 4. Suyu did not evade it, letting the blow hit his body like a clay ox sinking into the sea. Not even a corner of his clothes was damaged. Imu was stunned, and his voice trembled. What kind of strength is this? Next, an even more shocking scene appeared. In the closed cavern world, Suyu casually took out a golden long sword and slashed horizontally in the air, unleashing a golden sword energy that penetrated hundreds of millions of miles. Creak! There was a loud noise, and a scene that made Imu's eyes pop out of their sockets appeared in front of him. The sword energy actually split the entire cavern world into two. Suyu held the golden flames forbidden wood sword in his hand, like a god of war, and stepped into the boundless rumbling of the cavern world. With a casual glance, he immediately noticed that several powerful deities had gathered in one place. They were gathering together to deal with Suyu, the peerless enemy who had suddenly appeared. Shattering the cavern world with one sword, what kind of great power is this? In the middle of the ruins of the cavern world, a stalwart man with a powerful aura could not help but tremble. He sighed deeply, and his face was full of despair. Dakini, you are so cruel. You actually want to eliminate us completely by yourself? Beside him was a female deity who was full of maternal brilliance. Golden divine blood was constantly flowing from her chest, and her aura was gradually weakening. Her celestial energy sphere also showed signs of withering. She looked like she had been severely injured. She sighed helplessly. It doesn't matter if we die. You and I are both thorns in Dakini's eyes. It's a pity that no one can protect the juniors anymore. Sensing that the crushing and powerful aura was gradually approaching, the two of them looked at each other with determination in their eyes. Kill them. Kill them all. Just like that person, as long as he is alive, he will not die. The stalwart man clenched his fists and suppressed his fear. The female deity also had a look of unwillingness on her face. With a determined look, she rushed up. However, to their horror and despair, their opponent was too strong. They did not even sense the opponent's figure, and they were suppressed by a powerful aura. Step by step, they fell from the sky to the ground. When their feet touched the ground, a hand was placed on each of their shoulders. Obviously, it was a casual touch, but to their despair, their divine power was easily suppressed, and they could not use a trace of it. The two of them looked at each other for the last time. Only death was the relief and bitterness. In front of Dakini, they did not even have the power to resist. Xing deity, all-access merchant god, can you explain why it is you? However, the voice that rang in their ears was not the voice of Dakini, but a man. A voice that they were so familiar with for the past 7 years appeared in reality abruptly and without any warning. The two of them trembled, and they could not believe it, as if they were dreaming. Turning their heads stiffly, they saw a familiar face, so familiar that they would never forget it, clearly appeared in front of them. Even so, they still could not believe it. The all-access merchant god said in a trembling voice, "Who are you?" The holy maiden also stared at Suyu. She could not believe that the man who could suppress them with his aura alone was the boy from back then. Suyu released his hand and said, "I am back." The words, "I'm back," finally woke them up from their confusion. It was Suyu. He came back alive from under the heavenly lake. "It's really you." The two of them were shocked, overjoyed, and exclaimed. Some of the creatures around them also looked at each other from despair. What happened? That heaven-defying existence wasn't here to kill them? Why did it seem like he was familiar with the two deities? Suyu looked around and saw many slightly familiar faces, including those from the Xing deity family, the all-access merchant god family, the weapon-refining family, and the crane deity family. Every single one of them looked exhausted and mentally tortured. I learned that the traitors of the God Realm Empire were besieged here, but I didn't expect it to be you. So, the so-called collusion with the demon world, leaking information, and killing our own army, there is more to it than meets the eye? Suyu said lightly. He believed that they would never collude with the demon world. Hearing this, the all-access merchant god could not help but look up and laugh, and 2 strings of sad and old tears came out of his eyes. At this moment, Su Yu discovered that the all-access merchant god's temples were white, his forehead was full of wrinkles, and his skin was much darker. After 7 years, he had aged so much? The Xing deity was also a lot more haggard, no longer as graceful and noble as she used to be. With tears in her eyes, she looked at Su Yu and smiled. Su Yu, the Xing River is no longer the Xing River of the past. After 7 years, everything has changed. Chapter 1485. Speak, I'm listening, Su Yu said calmly. Su Yu's indifferent eyes seemed to be able to see the great waves that were hidden beneath the calmness. The Xing deity wiped away her tears and said, "Everything begins with the integration of the Great Western Alliance. When the 2 alliances merged into one, the Eastern and Western alliances were supposed to elect a leader each to form a federation. However, you went missing and no one knew if you were dead or alive. The Western Alliance was left without a leader." The Xing deity said, "The Great Western Alliance has temporarily decided to let Shimen Jian and Glittering Deity jointly manage it, so as to form an alliance with the Great Eastern Alliance. And the leader of the Great Eastern Alliance was undoubtedly the Dakini. Both sides had negotiated the alliance, and everything should have gone smoothly, but," as the Xing deity spoke, her eyes revealed a bone-chilling coldness. The demon clan suddenly attacked and appeared at the negotiation venue. Shimen Jian and Glittering Deity died on the spot. Su Yu's pupils contracted. They had actually died. Both of them were strong cultivators at the peak of the 5th level of the heaven, almost the same as the saint god Baotong merchant god. How could they die? Besides, why would the demons suddenly go deep into the negotiation hall? Kill them easily? How did they die? Su Yu asked, his eyes filled with indescribable coldness. The Xing deity shook her head. "That's what I don't understand. The negotiation was conducted in secret. Only the Dakini and their 2 leaders were present. In the end, they were besieged, and only the Dakini survived. She killed all the enemies. Shimen Jian and Glittering Deity were unfortunately sacrificed. Let's not talk about how the Devil Clan reached the hinterland of the Great Eastern Alliance. Let's talk about how the Dakini had the ability to annihilate the invading enemies. Why did it cause the 2 of them to die tragically? The Great Western Alliance is once again leaderless. The negotiations have been delayed, and they have been forced to stay outside the galaxy for 3 years. As a result, they have been constantly attacked by small groups of demons, and their casualties are increasing day by day." The Saint Deity said, "Unfortunately, the Saint Deity continues to delay, causing the Great Western Alliance to suffer more and more losses. In the end, it was the all-access merchant god and I who joined forces with the other deities to request for her to negotiate for the 2nd time. The condition of the negotiation was for the Western Alliance to unconditionally integrate into the Eastern Alliance and establish the Divine Realm Empire. Because of this, the 2 sides had a falling out and almost had a war. No matter how one looked at it, such harsh conditions were deliberately creating conflict between the 2 sides. It was me, the all-access merchant god, and the other deities who acted on our own, threatening to leave the Great Eastern Alliance to force the Dakini to give in. The condition was still the establishment of the Divine Realm Empire, but the Great Western Alliance was not under the jurisdiction of the Empire, and was only responsible for cooperating with it. I thought that was the end of the matter, but after the Eastern and Western Alliances merged, something unexpected happened. The Dakini found out that the 1st prince, 2nd princess, and 6th princess of the demonic world were hiding in the Western Alliance. She was furious and refused to listen to their reasons for joining the Western Alliance. Even if they surrendered, she still insisted on killing them. They were all captured and locked up in the underground dungeon. A group of insiders from the Great Western Alliance and I immediately spoke up, but none of us were believed. The Xing deity clenched her fists, showing the strong indignation in her heart. The most unexpected thing happened. Another group of demon world soldiers attacked. The Divine Realm Empire sent a large army to exterminate them, but we were ambushed midway and completely wiped out. The Dakini conducted a rigorous investigation and determined that someone had colluded with the demons and released information to the enemy. Finally, a captured demon revealed that it was me, the merchant god, the sword deity, the artifact refining deity, and some of the great deities in the Great Western Alliance who passed the information to them. The result was predictable. We were hunted down by the Divine Realm Empire, and from the honorable heroes of the Divine Realm Empire, we fell to the level of traitors until we hid in the former world of divine remains. The Xing deity was extremely sad and indignant. After listening to the narration, Su Yu slowly closed his eyes and suppressed his murderous intent. The Dakini, at this moment, he couldn't let go of the past. From the Xing deity's narration, the Dakini's various actions were too suspicious, and it was almost certain that she had ulterior motives. Withdrawing his murderous intent, Su Yu frowned. Both of you are strong level 5 peak, only a step away from level 4. Why are you being hunted down? Moreover, you have been in the Great Eastern Alliance for many years, and your prestige is everywhere. How could the Dakini order all the deities to hunt you down? This was what Su Yu couldn't understand. The all-access merchant god smiled bitterly. You don't know this, but as early as 100 years ago, the Dakini found an unparalleled relic at the bottom of the Great Eastern Alliance. It was filled with unimaginable resources. For many years, she had placed her confidence in the relic to cultivate, and cultivated 10 level 4 peerless strong people. As for herself, she had already quietly cultivated to the 3rd heaven long ago. That's why we are being hunted down so badly. Su Yu's eyes flashed slightly. As early as the discovery of the heavenly lake under the Western Alliance, Su Yu had guessed what was under the Great Eastern Alliance. The Xing River drifted at any time, and the cavern world had to rely on certain objects to be fixed. The Great Eastern Alliance should be no exception. He didn't expect it to be a mysterious relic. What was even more unexpected was that this relic had been discovered for hundreds of years, and the Dakini had used it to secretly develop her power, cultivating as many as 10 level 4 deities. With this power, it would be easy to rule the Eastern and Western Alliance. No wonder with the strength and prestige of the Xing deity and the all-access merchant god, they could easily end up like this. He was afraid that the other deities were afraid of the strength of these people and dared not resist. Su Yu couldn't help but think of Mu in the outside world. If he wasn't mistaken, he was one of the confidants of the Dakini. Su Yu, what kind of strength do you have now? Why can't we see through it at all? The all-access merchant god stared at Su Yu, recalling the scene of the two being easily suppressed by him just now. Su Yu said, I can't measure the specific strength, but it's not difficult to solve the current situation. Both of their eyes lit up. Was Su Yu confident that he could solve the current crisis? However, Su Yu's next words made them fall into inexplicable shock. It's time to get rid of the Dakini. Get rid of the Dakini? They were pleasantly surprised and incredulous. What had Su Yu experienced at the bottom of the heavenly lake? How could he be so confident that he could get rid of the Dakini? Now, she controlled the greatest force in the Xing River, the Holy Empire, and her own strength had reached level 3. Even if Su Yu had reached level 3, there was no way he could compete with the Dakini. Let's go and take over this Western fleet first, Su Yu said. With a wave of his hands, the Xing deity and the all-access merchant god felt as if heaven and earth had been turned upside down. When their feet were on solid ground, they had already appeared in a cabin. Mu, who was carefully entertaining Luo Shui and the others, felt his eyelids twitch. When he saw that the Xing deity and the all-access merchant god were both grabbed by the shoulders by Su Yu, he was overjoyed and shocked. What kind of terrifying strength was this? Back and forth, in just a few breaths, He had captured the two former deities who had been on the run for several years. However, the next moment, Imu stiffened on the spot. Su Yu loosened his grip and said, "Xing deity, all-access merchant god, you two go and take over this fleet. If there are any loyal deities who resist, kill them immediately." The Xing deity and the all-access merchant god stared at Imu. Seeing that the other party did not even dare to breathe, they were stunned. "What are you waiting for?" Su Yu glanced at the two of them. A casual glance made them tremble slightly, as if they were under great pressure. They immediately accepted the order, and went to the various warships to capture the important personnel. Imu's face finally changed, and he said, "Senior, they are traitors who colluded with the demons. Why are you?" He did not understand why Su Yu, who was filled with righteous indignation and murderous intent just a moment ago, suddenly sheltered them and seized the fleet by force. Su Yu stared at him thoughtfully. "Do you know who I am?" Imu cursed in his heart. "Who knows where you monsters came from?" He said, "Senior, please enlighten me." Su Yu said lightly, "Since you are the confidant of the Dakini, you must know who Su Yu is, right?" Su Yu. Imu's pupils widened, and he stared at Su Yu in horror. "Are you Su Yu?" "Impossible, he fell into the heavenly lake, and there is absolutely no possibility of him surviving. Senior, please don't joke with me." The tree goddess snorted. "When Su Yu and I fell into the demon dimension, no one thought we would come back alive. What happened in the end?" Imu's breathing quickened, and he felt guilty. Although he had never met Su Yu before, how could he not know his name? His eyes turned quickly, and he immediately kowtowed. Junior Imu is willing to follow Senior Su. He knew that the situation was extremely bad, and he chose to rely on Su Yu. However, Su Yu said calmly, "Since you are willing to follow me, let me see what kind of message you have secretly sent to your master." A dazzling red light flashed in his left eye, and a space talisman that was being transmitted in the void was suddenly moved back and fell into Su Yu's palm from the void. Seeing this, Imu's face turned extremely pale. With a puff, the talisman was rubbed and destroyed, and a line of clear small words appeared in the air. "Su Yu has returned, and his divine power has been greatly improved. There are also several mysterious strong men following him. I pretended to surrender, and I am willing to cooperate with you to destroy him." Staring at the small words, the tree goddess sneered without saying a word. Yongye Chushue and Luoshue were also full of disdain. Yongye Wuheng laughed. "How dare you play such a small trick in front of Brother Su? How insulting!" Imu's face turned cold, and he hurriedly kowtowed. "Senior, please spare my life." "I had no choice." Su Yu shook his head calmly. "No choice? The Dakini didn't control you, and you pretended to surrender." Imu's face turned pale, and he secretly clenched his fists, ready to fight to the death. Among these people, the other four were so powerful that they were suffocating, and he didn't even want to try. The only one who could do this was Su Yu. If he could take Su Yu by surprise and subdue him with this in mind, he begged even more desperately, "Senior, please spare my life. I am willing to do anything for you, and I can even make a vow, but please spare my life." While he was kowtowing, his face suddenly twisted, and he quickly grabbed Su Yu's legs with his hands as fast as lightning. Mountain shaking and mountain shaking! His vigorous divine power gathered in his palms, and he performed a move full of explosive power to seize Su Yu's legs. Then, he took the opportunity to pull Su Yu to the ground and choke him. It was a good idea, and his action was decisive. Unfortunately, this sudden move didn't achieve the expected effect. Su Yu's legs were like two pillars that supported the sky, and they didn't move at all. Imu was shocked. How could this be possible? At this moment, he heard a voice that made his hair stand on end. "Why? Do you want to lick my shoes and pledge your loyalty?" "Unfortunately, there is no need for that." Chapter 1486. Yongye Chushue and Luoshue's eyes turned cold. They were ready to kill Su Yu with their ultimate magical powers. Su Yu waved his hand to stop them. Staring at Imu, whose eyes were full of panic and despair, he said lightly, "In fact, I welcome you to work for me. However, the method is not for you to make a dispensable oath, but—" His eyes suddenly shot out a beam of brilliant light, which disappeared between Imu's eyebrows. Imu's eyes gradually changed, and finally became gentle. He bowed to Su Yu and said, "Greetings, Master." Today, the illusionary soul mirror had become more and more refined in Su Yu's hands. He could capture the gap in the enemy's mind in an instant and forcibly control them without having to open their mind. Imu was overjoyed when he learned that Su Yu intended to keep him for his own use and that he would not die for the time being. Su Yu planted the illusionary soul mirror in his mind. Everyone was secretly shocked when they saw this scene. This kind of control method could make the enemy devout from the inside out, and his soul was not under his control at all. This technique was too horrible. If Su Yu used it on them, they would not have much chance to resist. They had a better understanding of Su Yu's strength. In Su Yu's perception, a soul mark appeared in his mind, which was the mark of Imu. In addition, there were also marks left by years of controlling others. Dozens of them were in the realm of demons. Su Yu's eyes lit up. Are they still alive? It's time to use them. With a thought, Su Yu crushed a communication jade pendant. In a primitive jungle somewhere in the realm of demons. In a secret building complex hidden underground, dozens of men in black and bamboo hats were shuttling back and forth. At the center of the building complex, a middle-aged man wearing a bamboo hat was standing. He was busy receiving all kinds of information and summarizing and classifying them. Next to him was a tall woman with bright eyes and white teeth. She had a beautiful face with a hint of arrogance. He patted the middle-aged man's shoulder and said, "Father, the Demon King has left for 8 years and never contacted us again. Is it still necessary to collect information about the realm of demons for him day after day?" They were Qian Jun and his daughter. Before Su Yu left, he only left them and the 50 controlled prospective deities to collect all the information about the realm of demons. The content of the information was complex and detailed, which was amazing. From the situation of the Holy Magic Hall dispatching troops to the price of goods in the Devil World. In the past 8 years, Qian Jun had established a covert intelligence force with 50 prospective deities as the foundation. There were nearly 10,000 people under his command, which radiated to all regions of the Devil World. Through this, he would be able to learn more about the demon world. Everything he had done was to complete Su Yu's order before he left. For the past 8 years, he had been meticulous and had never slacked off. However, it was as if Su Yu had vanished from the face of the earth, and he had never contacted them again. As a result, Sha'er began to feel lost. She didn't know what was the point of continuing on like this. Qian Jun put down the jade pendant in his hand and sighed in a low voice. "I guess you must have something important to deal with." Sha'er said gloomily, "Has he forgotten about us? With that lord's means, he's most likely someone who can summon the wind and summon the rain in the galaxy and is worshipped by the god. Why would he still remember insignificant people like us?" His words touched Qianjuan's sore spot and his expression changed slightly. Sha'er continued, "Princess Yunxia has already noticed us. She has secretly ordered the Holy Magic Hall to investigate our intelligence organization. I think it won't be long before we are exposed. If we disband the organization now and hide our identities, we might still be able to—" "Shut up!" Qian Jun's face darkened. Then, he shouted, "You and I owe him a debt of gratitude as long as we haven't given him the information we have collected in the past 8 years. If we disband the organization now, how can we face him? In fact, it would be difficult for them to disband the organization even if they wanted to. The 50 core members of the organization were all under Su Yu's control. Without his order, they wouldn't stop collecting information." Sha'er opened her red lips and was about to say something. All of a sudden, a strange fiery light streaked across the sky toward the secret building complex. Shar was stunned. Whose message is this? Why is it so strange? While she was thinking, Qian Jun's expression changed abruptly. Then, he jumped up and grabbed the fiery light. The fiery light was extinguished. The splashing sparks turned into a line of small words in the void. Send someone to see me in half a year. The place is the crane deity's family of the Great Eastern Alliance. Seeing the words, Qian Jun and his daughter were both shocked. Only one person would say that, which was Yin Yu. No, Su Yu. After 8 years, he finally contacted them. Qian Jun burst into tears as he couldn't suppress his joy. 8 years of waiting is not in vain. Shar was shocked. Then, she sighed. Alas! 8 years have passed. The realm of demons is no longer what it used to be. Can he still save the situation by asking for information at this time? Qian Jun laughed in high spirits. Have you forgotten what he is best at? It was to make the impossible possible. Hearing that, Shar was stunned a bit. Then, she nodded her head. In the Star River, the army that occupied the West Road was controlled by Emu. The changes that happened in this place were not leaked to the Great Eastern Alliance. 10 battleships, the entire fleet returned without a sound. The remaining creatures in the 3 cavern worlds were also incorporated into the battleship. On the main ship, Su Yu said, Xing deity, all-access merchant god, why didn't I see Xing Yuanxin and Yang Tai? The Xing deity and the all-access merchant god said bitterly, it happened so suddenly. At that time, they were carrying out a mission in the Sunluo law enforcing team. We were chased by them and didn't have time to take them with us. Now they are probably. The Xing deity didn't finish her sentence. There were only 2 possible outcomes. Either they were captured or they were dead. If they were still alive, they would have gone to the world of divine remains to seek refuge. The old face of the all-access merchant god looked even older. The only child he had cultivated all his life was gone. Su Yu remained silent for a long time. In his mind, Xing Yuanxin's elegant and quiet figure, as well as Yang Tai's heroic and valiant demeanor, appeared. The 2 of them were Su Yu's few friends in the Great Eastern Alliance. What about Wang Yunxian? Su Yu asked. The all-access merchant god sighed silently. He was captured. Because of his special craftsmanship ability, his life was spared. He was imprisoned in the Empire as a craftsmanship slave. Su Yu looked around and finally found that some people were missing. Then, what about the craftsmanship deity? The Xing deity and the all-access merchant god were silent. Silence was the best answer. He had died. Su Yu was stunned. He had never had a direct relationship with the craftsmanship deity. However, in the Tomb of the Gods, there were few craftsmanship deities who supported him. Such an elder had died in this way. How did he die? Su Yu asked. They all escaped. Why didn't the craftsmanship deity leave? Plop. A figure knelt in front of Su Yu with a pale face and said in a low voice, I did not teach my son well. I taught him to be an evil creature. Secular sword deity? What do you mean? Su Yu shook his sleeves and helped him up. The sword deity's face was full of self-blame, shame, and hatred. He said, the death of the craftsmanship deity was all because of my son, Bu Rui. The former second strongest of the Sunluo Law Enforcement Hall, Bu Rui, the descendant of the sword deity. Because Su Yu and Xing Yuanxin were good friends, he fought with Su Yu, and the result was naturally tragic. After thinking about it, he realized that he had decided to retreat to practice. Unexpectedly, when he heard news of him again, he was the one who killed the craftsmanship deity. We originally fled separately. It was the evil creature who reported the whereabouts of the craftsmanship deity to the Dakini, which caused the craftsmanship deity to be besieged and killed. The secular sword deity clenched his fists, making a cracking sound. Su Yu said indifferently, what is his purpose? The secular sword deity said with a look of shame, He felt that following us would bring about his own destruction, so he wanted to exchange the head of the craftsmanship deity for the qualification to stay in the God Realm Empire. He got what he wanted. Not only was he appointed as the new sword deity by the Dakini, but he was also put in an important position as the deputy captain of the East Fleet. He has an extraordinary position in the God Realm Empire. His words were serious and full of killing intent. If Burui was in front of him, he would never show mercy. I see, Suyu said. So, what about Hirushu, the current master of the crane deity's family? The all-access merchant god sighed and said, after you went to the land of the gods, they were suppressed and their aristocratic families were disqualified. It was Yang Tai who took care of them. Later, we were also in danger. You don't need to think about the situation of the crane deity's family. According to some old guys in the Alliance who secretly support us, the important members of the crane deity's family have been enslaved and used as slaves. After hearing this, Suyu took a deep breath. Xing Yuanxin and Yang Tai were missing, Wang Yunxian was captured, and Hirushu was enslaved. 1 year in the demonic dimension, 7 years in the lost god realm. 8 years had passed, and Suyu's old friends had all suffered the same fate. And all this was because of one person, the Dakini. It's time to settle the score between us, Suyu murmured as he stroked the ring on his fingertip. The Xing deity said hesitantly, I know you have made great progress in your cultivation, but you should think twice before you act to deal with the Dakini. She is now the spiritual leader of the God Realm Empire, worshipped by trillions of creatures. All the deities are convinced by her. A word from her can command all the deities in the God Realm Empire and affect the will of trillions of creatures. Don't be careless. Suyu didn't care much about the deities of the God Realm Empire. However, Suyu couldn't ignore the will of trillions of creatures. He had tried the incomparable effect of the power of faith on the divine path. He also hoped to absorb the faith of all living beings according to Xia Jingyu's method. If he killed the Dakini by force, he would be rejected by the will of all living beings. How could he obtain the power of faith of all living beings? He had to dispel the ignorant worship of the Dakini and let them know the crimes of the Dakini. If he explained it to them, he was afraid that 1,000 words from them wouldn't carry as much weight as a single sentence from the Dakini. After all, they were fugitives who had colluded with the demonic dimension, and the Dakini was the empress of the God Realm Empire. There is no need for a long-term plan. I have a plan that can make the Dakini fall into eternal damnation. Suyu said calmly, however, I still have to wait for someone, some information, and confirm something before I can carry it out. Knowing that Suyu had come up with a plan so quickly, the people looked at each other and smiled bitterly. 8 years had passed, and he had become more and more cunning, resourceful. So, why are we sailing to the God Realm Empire now? The sword deity asked. Suyu looked at him and said, to fulfill one of your wishes, of course. Hearing that, the sword deity's face showed a complicated expression, which was immediately replaced by coldness. He said, please give me the opportunity to kill him. Suyu nodded and then shook his head, giving a strange expression.